There is a moment in the first episode of Steven Universe where the camera lingers on the inside of Steven's house for just a beat longer than it needs to. Above the front door, hanging in that warm, cluttered living room, there is a painting of a woman. She has thick pink curls that spiral outward like they are trying to escape the canvas. Her expression is serene, her eyes gently closed, and her hands rest at her sides, as if she has just finished saying something important and is waiting for the world to catch up. It would be easy to glance past her. She is, after all, just a painting, just part of the background. But that is the trick of this show, is it not? In Steven Universe, the background is never just the background. The painting of Rose Quartz hangs in that house for the entire run of the series, and if you watch closely, truly closely, you start to notice that something about it shifts. The way the light falls across her face, the angle of her expression relative to Steven as he grows, whether the supports around the frame seem to obscure her eyes or reveal them. It is a small thing, the kind of detail most viewers would never consciously register, but it is there, quietly doing its work, episode after episode, reflecting the way Steven's understanding of his mother slowly, painfully, beautifully transforms over the course of the story. And that is what this show does better than almost anything else on television. It hides things, not carelessly, not as afterthoughts, but with intention, with patience, with the kind of love that only reveals itself when you look back and realize the answer was in front of you the entire time. This is a show built on secrets, layer upon layer of visual detail, musical coding, narrative foreshadowing, and quiet references that most people miss on a first viewing. Some of them are obvious once someone points them out. Others are so deeply embedded in the fabric of the animation that even dedicated fans debate whether they were intentional. Welcome to Futuro. If you are settling in for the night, get comfortable. This is going to be a long one. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Now let us begin with the things you can see, the visual details hidden in plain sight across the 5 seasons of Steven Universe. One of the most charming and quietly brilliant recurring elements in the show is Crying Breakfast Friends, the cartoon within a cartoon that Steven watches throughout the series. On the surface, it seems like a joke, a parody of overly emotional children's programming, the kind of thing that exists to make you smile and then forget about it. But Crying Breakfast Friends is doing something far more clever than it first appears. The characters in the show, Crying Pear, Sad Spoon, Weeping Egg Cup, and the rest are not random. They are mirrors. They reflect the emotional dynamics of the crystal gems themselves, often foreshadowing conflicts before they happen in the main narrative. The clearest example comes in the episode Cry for Help, where Crying Pear is caught lying to Sad Spoon. The parallels are unmistakable once you see them. Crying Pear is Pearl, Sad Spoon is Garnet. And the betrayal playing out on the television screen inside Steven's house is a miniature preview of the betrayal that is about to unfold between Pearl and Garnet in that very episode. Steven and Amethyst watch Sad Spoon forgiving Crying Pear, and the show cuts to Garnet watching the same scene with a non-committal scowl, as if the cartoon is speaking directly to her and she knows it. The Crooniverse, the production team behind Steven Universe, have acknowledged that Crying Breakfast Friends functions as a self-deprecating joke about the show itself, a nod to the early criticism that Steven Universe was nothing but crying cartoon characters. But beneath the humour, it operates as a genuine narrative device. It is a distorted reflection of the crystal gems, playing out their conflicts in miniature, giving the audience a second lens through which to understand the emotional architecture of the show. And speaking of visual architecture, there is something happening in the backgrounds of Steven Universe that most viewers never notice. The show maintains an unusual level of environmental continuity. When something breaks, it stays broken. When a battle damages the town, the evidence lingers. The wreckage of the Red Eye, the alien surveillance orb that Garnet destroys early in the series, does not simply vanish after the episode ends. Fragments of it remain scattered across Beach City. The holes drilled by Peridot's Robonoids persist. The damage inflicted on Fish Stew Pizza during a gem battle is visible in later episodes. This this is not standard practice for animated television, especially not for a show airing on Cartoon Network. Most cartoons reset their environments between episodes, restoring everything to a default state, as if nothing happened. Steven Universe refuses to do that. The world remembers. The town carries its scars. And this creates a subtle but powerful sense that Beach City is a real place, one that exists continuously even when the camera is not looking at it. That sense of reality extends to one of the show's most clever pieces of world building. Ronaldo Fryman, the conspiracy-obsessed teenager who runs a blog called Keep Beach City Weird, does not just exist within the show, he exists outside of it. The Crewniverse created an actual Tumblr blog under the name Keep Beach City Weird, written entirely in character as Ronaldo, cataloguing strange events in Beach City from the perspective of someone who has no idea what the crystal gems actually are. The blog launched on September 19th, 2013, less than 2 months before the show's official premiere on November 4th of that year. It was written by series head writers Matt Burnett and Ben Levin, and it served as both a marketing tool and an extension of the show's universe. Ronaldo's paranoid theories about polymorphic sentient rocks and Sneeple, snake people secretly controlling the world, played out in real time on Tumblr while the show aired on television. Some of his theories, delivered as the ramblings of a delusional conspiracy theorist, turned out to be uncomfortably close to the truth. The blog eventually became the basis for a tie-in book, Keep Beach City Weird, You Can't Hide the Truth, published in April 2017. It is a small detail in the grand scope of the series, but it speaks to the level of care the creators invested in making this world feel alive beyond the boundaries of the screen. Now let us talk about something you might not have caught, unless you are paying very close attention to Peridot. When she first appears in the series, she is intimidating, tall, angular, commanding, with elongated limbs that give her a mechanical precision. She towers over the crystal gems and carries herself with the cold authority of Homeworld. But there is a secret hiding inside her character design. Those limbs are not real. They are limb enhancers, technological extensions that make her appear far larger and more capable than she actually is. When the enhancers are finally removed, the reveal is genuinely shocking. Without them, Peridot is tiny. She is roughly the same height as Ruby and Sapphire, barely taller than Steven. The intimidating figure that stalked through so many episodes turns out to be, as Pearl puts it, harmless. This is not just a sight gag, it is a piece of world building that speaks to the entire structure of Homeworld society, where appearance and function are everything, where a gem's perceived value is tied to her size and her role, and where technology can be used to mask the truth of what someone actually is. Peridot's limb enhancers are a lie she wears on her body, and the moment they come off, everything about her character shifts. She becomes vulnerable, paranoid, juvenile, treating household objects as potential weapons, and interpreting every interaction with the crystal gems as a threat. The enhancers were not just making her taller, they were making her someone else entirely. And then there is Garnet's visor. This is one of the most elegant pieces of visual storytelling in the entire series. Garnet wears a visor, a reflective pair of shades, that covers her 3 eyes for most of the show. It is part of her character design, as iconic as Amethyst's whip or Pearl's spear. But the visor is not static, it changes. In moments of heightened emotion, the visor becomes more transparent, allowing the audience to see Garnet's eyes beneath it. When she is angry, the visor tints red, reflecting Ruby's influence. When she is calm and contemplative, it shifts toward blue, reflecting Sapphire. And in moments of perfect balance, when Garnet speaks as a true fusion of both halves, the visor becomes nearly clear. One of the most striking early moments comes in Arcade Mania, when Steven removes her shades while she is entranced by a rhythm game, revealing all 3 eyes for the first time. But a more emotionally charged instance occurs in Mirror Gem, where the visor comes off and we see raw intensity etched across her face. But the most significant moment comes in Jailbreak, when Garnet reforms after being separated into Ruby and Sapphire. She appears without her visor deliberately, and her first action is to turn to Steven with an expression expression that carries gratitude, pride, and a quiet vulnerability. The visor is a wall. When Garnet removes it voluntarily, she is telling someone that she trusts them enough to be seen. It is a small animation choice that carries enormous emotional weight, and it happens so naturally that most viewers feel its impact without ever consciously understanding why. Connie Maheswaran offers another beautiful example of visual continuity serving character development. In the episode An Indirect Kiss, Stephen accidentally heals Connie's eyesight with his saliva, a moment played for both comedy and genuine sweetness. But here is the detail that matters. After her eyes are healed, Connie does not simply stop wearing glasses. She pops the lenses out of her frames and continues wearing the empty frames because she does not want her parents to find out that her vision has been miraculously corrected. She does not want to explain Stephen, the gems, or anything about the extraordinary life she has stumbled into, so she wears a disguise, a mask made of empty frames, and this persists for episodes, quietly, in the background, until the episode Nightmare Hospital, where Connie finally confronts her mother and reveals the truth. The pivotal moment in that confrontation is Connie pointing out that her mother never even noticed the lenses were gone. It is a scene about honesty, about the distance between parents and children, and about the courage it takes to stop pretending. And it all hinges on a visual detail that the show established episodes earlier and simply let sit, trusting that the audience would remember, or that the payoff would work even if they did not. If you are still with us, and if you are enjoying this kind of close reading, a quick subscribe really does make a difference. It is free, and it helps us keep making these long-form analyses for everyone who finds their way here. Let us shift now from what you can see to what you can hear, because the musical design of Steven Universe is hiding just as many secrets as the animation. Consider Garnet's song Stronger Than You from the episode Jailbreak. It is one of the most iconic moments in the entire series, the scene where Garnet reforms and battles Jasper while singing a declaration of self-love and fusion. The song was written by Rebecca Sugar, who composed much of the show's music, and performed by Estelle, the Grammy-winning recording artist who voices Garnet. What makes this song remarkable, beyond its emotional power, is that it was composed specifically to showcase Estelle's voice. Sugar wrote it knowing exactly who would sing it, tailoring the melody, the rhythm, and the lyrical cadence to fit Estelle's vocal style. The result is a song that does not just sound good, it sounds inevitable, as if it could not have been sung by anyone else. The initial demo arrangement was created by Jeff Liu, and then Evie and Sarashu, the show's composer duo, crafted the final instrumental arrangement. Every element of the song was designed to serve the moment and the voice delivering it, and that level of musical intentionality is threaded through the entire series. Rose Quartz has a leitmotif, a recurring musical phrase that appears whenever she is referenced, remembered, or alluded to. It first appears prominently in the episode An Indirect Kiss, but it is most widely recognised from its use in Story for Stephen. What makes it remarkable is how deeply it is woven into the show's musical fabric. The motif does not simply play when Rose appears on screen, it hides inside other pieces of music, sometimes inverted, sometimes fragmented, sometimes played in reverse. In the track associated with Lion's Mane, the first half of Rose's theme plays backward, while the second half plays forward. In Rose's Fountain, the motif surfaces in a more melancholic arrangement. A piano variation appears during Pearl's dream in the episode Chilly Tid, and a darker, more ominous version emerges in Night Drive 2 during the moment when Greg tells Stephen the real reason the gems came to Earth. The leitmotif functions almost like Rose herself, present everywhere, shaping everything, but never quite fully visible. You can listen to the entire soundtrack of Steven Universe and not consciously register how many times her musical fingerprint appears. But your subconscious hears it, and that is the point. And then there is Love Like You, the song that plays over the end credits. It is performed by Rebecca Sugar herself, with music composed by Ivy and Sarashu. What most viewers do not realise is that Love Like You was not written all at once. It was composed across the entire run of the series, with new lyrics and sections added over the course of 3 years. The song grew alongside the show, and its meaning shifted as Sugar's relationship with the material and the audience evolved. She has spoken about how the song began as an exploration of an alien who is loved by a human but does not have the capacity to understand or reciprocate that love. Over time, as fans reached out to her with messages of gratitude and connection, the meaning changed. It became, in her words, about the people who love her and her own difficulty expressing love in return. The song has no single character attached to it. It is deliberately ambiguous, a piece of music that belongs to whoever needs it most in that moment. And because it was written incrementally, week by week, season by season, it carries within it a genuine record of emotional growth. It is not just a song about love, it is a song that learned what love meant while it was being written. The composers Ivy and Sarashu built an entire system of musical identity into Steven Universe that goes far beyond individual songs. Every major gem character has their own musical genre and instrumentation. Pearl is accompanied by piano, elegant and precise, reflecting her perfectionism and classical sensibility. Garnet is scored with synth bass, deep and grounding, reflecting the stability of her fusion. Amethyst gets drum machines, electric bass and raw synths, matching her impulsive, rebellious energy. Steven himself is represented by chiptune tones, the bright digital sounds of retro video games, reflecting both his youth and his connection to a world that is half human and half something else entirely. The division of labour between the two composers mirrors this. Evie handles most of Pearl and Steven's music. Sarashu handles Garnet and Amethyst. And when Garnet was finally revealed to be a fusion, the composers had to reverse engineer her sound to create distinct musical identities for Ruby and Sapphire. Ruby became a crude waveform, something between a square wave and a saw wave, aggressive and unstable. Sapphire became a gentle synth pad, smooth and ethereal. When they fuse, those two sounds merge into the deep, confident bass that defines Garnet. The music is not scoring the scene, it is scoring the character. It is telling you who is present even before you see them. The Diamonds have their own musical signature as well, and it is built on a specific harmonic concept. Each diamond is represented by a major seventh chord, a chord frequently associated with jazz, with its characteristic blend of warmth and tension. Blue diamond is scored with E major 7, yellow diamond gets B major 7, white diamond is represented by F sharp major 7, and pink diamond, the diamond whose identity drives the central mystery of the series, is assigned a major 7. These four chords are heard in sequence at the beginning of the soundtrack, and they recur throughout the series whenever the diamond's presence or influence is felt. The choice of major 7th chords is significant. They are chords that sound beautiful, but carry an inherent instability, a dissonance within their beauty. They resolve and unsettle at the same time. For a show about a family of seemingly perfect rulers, whose perfection masks profound dysfunction, it is a harmonic choice that tells you everything you need to know before a single word of dialogue is spoken. The episode Mindful Education from Season 4 contains a song called Here Comes a Thought, performed by Estelle and AJ McAlker. On the surface, it is a duet between Garnet and Stevoni. Beneath the surface, it is a functioning guided meditation. The song walks through the actual steps of mindfulness practice, the cognitive behavioral technique of observing intrusive thoughts without judgment and allowing them to pass. Garnet sings about taking a moment to think of flexibility, love, and trust. She describes thoughts as things you can watch go by, like clouds or waves, without needing to engage with them or be consumed by them. The structure of the song mirrors the structure of mindfulness cognitive behavior therapy, the therapeutic approach developed to help people manage anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress. Fans of the show have spoken publicly about how this song introduced them to mindfulness practice, how they used it as an actual meditation tool during periods of anxiety. It is a song inside a cartoon about magical aliens, and it functions as genuine mental health support. That is not an accident. It is the result of a creative team that took the emotional lives of their audience as seriously as the emotional lives of their characters. Greg Universe's musical identity is its own treasure chest of references. His backstory as a failed rock musician who dropped out of college to tour as a one-man band called Mr. Universe is steeped in 1980s rock pop culture. His music, the songs he writes and performs within the show, is a loving pastiche of the era's most grandiose, big-haired, starry-eyed rock sound. He's recorded albums with titles like Space Train to the Cosmos and Let Me Drive My Van Into Your Heart. His vinyl record collection, visible in background shots, includes references to real artists. Yellow Magic Orchestra appears, No Doubt appears. There is a nod to Queen's 1977 album News of the World, and in a quiet meta-joke, one of the records references Estelle, the real-world musician who voices Garnet, placing her inside the fictional universe alongside Greg's collection. When Steven asks Greg for help decrypting a message in the message, Greg responds with a line referencing the 1979 Buggles hit Video Killed the Radio Star. His former manager Marty calls him Star Child, a nod to Paul Stanley of Kiss. Greg's entire musical world is a love letter to an era of rock music that believed in sincerity and spectacle in equal measure, and it gives his character a depth that grounds the show's more fantastical elements in something recognizable human. The opening theme of Steven Universe Future, the epilogue series, takes the song Happily Ever After from Steven Universe, the movie, and reimagines it as the new introduction. While the original series opened with We Are the Crystal Gems, a bright declaration of purpose and belonging, the future version carries a different emotional weight. The melody is familiar, but the context has shifted. Steven is older, the battles are over, and the question is no longer whether he can save the world, but whether he can save himself. The musical continuity between the original theme, the movie song, and the future opening creates a through line that tracks Steven's emotional journey across the entire franchise. It is the same melody, but it means something different now. The way a childhood lullaby sounds different when you hear it as an adult. If this is the kind of content you enjoy, subscribing is the simplest way to make sure we can keep going. It costs nothing, and it genuinely helps. Now let us move into the territory of foreshadowing, the details that seem meaningless on first viewing, but reveal themselves as deliberate once you know where the story is going. The real-world science of mineralogy runs deeper through Steven Universe than most viewers realise. The gem characters are not just named after stones. Their personalities, abilities, and social roles often correspond to the actual physical and metaphysical properties of their namesake minerals. Diamond sits at the top of the Mohs scale of mineral hardness, and the diamonds rule Homeworld as its supreme authority. Amethyst, in real-world crystal healing traditions, is associated with love and emotional openness, and the character Amethyst is the most emotionally unguarded of the crystal gems. Pearl, associated with purity and refinement, maps onto a character defined by her pursuit of perfection and her devotion to order. Sapphire, linked to wisdom and mental clarity, reflects her character's calm intelligence and future vision. Rose Quartz, the stone of love and joy, matches a character defined by her capacity for compassion and her almost overwhelming warmth. The show takes creative liberties, of course. Ruby and Sapphire are treated as distinct gem types despite both being varieties of corundum in the real world. Aquamarine, Emerald, and several other characters are depicted as separate species, even though they are all forms of beryl. But the correspondences that do exist are too consistent to be coincidental. Someone on the creative team was doing their mineralogy homework, and the result is a layer of meaning that extends beyond the screen and into the actual geology of the Earth that the crystal gems are fighting to protect. The Gem War, the ancient conflict that serves as the backdrop for the entire series, operates as a sustained allegory for colonialism. The Diamonds use their armies to conquer other worlds, draining planetary resources and extinguishing indigenous life to create more gems. They arrive, extract, and leave behind hollowed-out worlds. The parallels to real colonial history are extensive and deliberate. Pink Diamond's first encounter with humans on Earth echoes the dynamics of colonial contact narratives. The caste system of Homeworld, where every gem is assigned a fixed role based on her type, and expected to serve that role without deviation, mirrors the rigid hierarchies imposed by colonial powers on colonized populations. Pearls in particular exist in a state that explicitly evokes enslavement. They are created to be servants, decorative objects defined entirely by their owners, stripped of individual identity. The Crystal Gem Rebellion, led by Rose Quartz, is framed as a revolution against this extractive imperialism, a fight not just for Earth, but for the right of every gem to choose her own purpose. Rebecca Sugar has acknowledged that Steven Universe engages with these themes intentionally, using the abstraction of an alien civilization to explore ideas about oppression, freedom, and self-determination that might be more difficult to address directly. The show does not lecture. It does not announce its themes. It simply builds a world where colonialism is the foundational sin and then asks what it would look like to try to heal from it. Connie Maheswaran is one of the most literate characters in animation, and the books she reads are not random props. The Spirit Morph Saga, the fictional book series that Connie loves and eventually shares with Steven, is a recognizable homage to Philip Pullman's His Dark Materials trilogy. The first book, The Unfamiliar Familiar, follows a girl named Lisa who is unaware of her abilities as a witch. She has a talking falcon familiar named Archimicarus, and she is on a quest to find her kidnapped father. The premise closely mirrors The Golden Compass, with elements of Harry Potter woven through it. But beyond the fictional books, Connie is also shown reading real titles. In the show's opening sequence, she holds a copy of A Wrinkle in Time by Madeleine L'Engle, a novel about a young girl who travels through space and time to rescue her father from a malevolent cosmic force. The thematic resonance with Steven Universe's own story of a child navigating extraordinary circumstances to understand a missing parent is unmistakable. These are not throwaway choices. Someone selected every book Connie holds on screen, and every selection reflects the show's deeper concerns about identity, belonging, and the courage required to step into a world that does not make sense. Beach City itself is a love letter to a real place. The fictional town where Steven Universe is set is loosely based on the beach communities of Delaware that Rebecca Sugar visited as a child. Rehoboth Beach, Bethany Beach, and Dewey Beach all contributed elements to Beach City's geography, architecture, and atmosphere. The references are not subtle once you know to look for them. Mayor Dewey, the anxious, well-meaning leader of Beach City, shares his name with Dewey Beach. The town's candy shop, Danny's, is a nod to Dolly's Candyland, a real establishment in Rehoboth Beach. Funland, the amusement park where Steven and his friends spend time throughout the series, takes its name from an actual children's amusement park in the area. Even the geography matches. Beach City is located in the state of Delmarva, the show's fictional version of the Delmarva Peninsula, the real-world landmass that encompasses parts of Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. The peninsula faces eastward toward the Atlantic Ocean, just as the real Rehoboth Beach does. Sugar did not just set her show at the beach. She set it at a specific beach, one she knew and loved, and then wove that specificity into the fabric of the world she created. Steven's weapon, his shield, is a defensive tool. In a show full of characters whose gem weapons are designed to attack, spears and whips and gauntlets, Steven summons a shield. He cannot cut. He cannot strike from a distance. He can only protect. This is a deliberate character statement, a declaration that Steven's power lies not in his ability to destroy, but in his ability to keep others safe. The visual design of the shield, circular with a rose emblem at its center, invites comparison to another famous shield-wielding hero. Stephen Rogers, Captain America, carries a circular shield and shares Steven's first name. Both characters are defined by their moral conviction rather than their physical strength. Both use a defensive weapon in offensive situations, turning protection into a form of resistance. The parallel may not be explicitly confirmed by the creators, but the resonance is clear. Steven Universe is, in many ways, a reimagining of the superhero narrative through the lens of empathy rather than force. His shield is not a backup plan, it is his entire philosophy made manifest. The concept of fusion in Steven Universe, the ability of two or more gems to merge into a single being through synchronized dancing, draws directly from Dragon Ball Z. Rebecca Sugar has spoken openly about the anime she watched as a child and its influence on her work. The fusion dance that gems perform to combine is inspired by the fusion technique from the Buu saga of Dragon Ball Z, also known as the Gatai technique. But where Dragon Ball Z treats fusion primarily as a power-up, a way for two fighters to become stronger, Steven Universe transforms it into something far more intimate. Fusion in this show is a metaphor for relationships. It requires trust, vulnerability, and genuine connection. When fusion is forced or coerced, the result is monstrous. When it is freely chosen, the result is beautiful. The dance itself, the physical synchronization required, becomes a visual language for consent and emotional attunement. Sugar took a concept from a show about fighting and turned it into a concept about love. The Dragon Ball Z influence is the skeleton. The emotional architecture built on top of it is entirely Steven Universe's own. The Crystal Temple, the massive stone structure built into the cliff face where the crystal gems live, is shaped like a giant multi-armed figure. This is not just an architectural choice. The temple is a representation of obsidian, the fusion of all 5 original crystal gems: rose quartz, garnet, amethyst, pearl, and eventually Steven in Rose's place. The design of the temple figure, with its multiple arms, flowing hair, and imposing posture, bears a striking resemblance to Hindu depictions of deities, particularly the goddess Kali, who is commonly portrayed as a powerful warrior woman with many arms, ash-coloured or blue skin, and long dark hair. While this has not been confirmed as the direct design inspiration, the visual parallels are difficult to ignore. The temple figure has 8 arms. Kali is traditionally depicted with 6, 8, or even 10 arms, each holding a symbolic object or weapon. The connection extends to another fusion in the show as well. Sugalite, the fusion of garnet and amethyst, voiced by Nicki Minaj, is also noted for her resemblance to Kali, the goddess of destruction. Whether intentional or not, the Hindu visual language of divine multiplicity, where additional arms represent expanded power and cosmic significance, maps perfectly onto Steven Universe's concept of fusion as a transcendence of individual limitation. Multiple beings become one. Multiple arms reach outward. The divine and the personal merge. The Strawberry Battlefield, the ancient site of the final major battle of the Gem War, is one of the most haunting locations in the series. It appears as a vast field of wild strawberries and butterflies, a landscape of gentle beauty that conceals something terrible. Scattered across the field, half buried in the earth and overgrown with vegetation, are weapons. Swords, axes, spears. Some of them are enormous, far larger than any weapon a standard gem would carry. A giant purple axe recovered from the battlefield in the episode Rose's Scabbard is particularly striking for its scale. The weapons were created by Bismuth, the crystal gem blacksmith, and they represent the thousands of gems who fell in the war and never reformed. Each weapon is a gravestone. Each rusted blade marks the spot where a conscious being ceased to exist. The strawberries themselves grow from the mineral-rich soil left behind by shattered gems, turning death into sweetness, horror into beauty. It is one of the most visually poetic locations in the show, a place where the pastoral and the catastrophic exist in the same frame, and where the true cost of the Gem War is measured not in statistics, but in the silent weight of abandoned weapons slowly disappearing beneath the fruit. And that is where we will pause for now. 25 details, 25 hidden layers, in a show that has hundreds more to offer. We've barely scratched the surface. The visual tricks, the musical codes, the foreshadowing that threads through every season, all of it is still ahead. But for now, if you are drifting off, let that be enough. Let the strawberries grow over the battlefield. Let the music play in reverse. Let the painting on the wall keep its secrets for a little while longer. We will come back to them. There is no rush. This show waited years to reveal what it was hiding. We can wait too. So far, most of what we have covered lives on the surface. Animation details, musical secrets, the kind of hidden references that reward a careful eye or a sharp ear. But Steven Universe is a show that hides its deepest work not in what you can see or hear, but in what you understand. The design of a character, the placement of a symbol, the way a colour tells you something about a person before they ever speak a single word. These are the details that sit underneath everything else, and once you start pulling at them, the entire show rearranges itself. Consider for a moment the stars. Every member of the Crystal Gems wears a star somewhere on their body. Steven has it on his shirt, front and centre, pink against red. Pearl has worn stars in various positions across her regenerations, sometimes on her chest, sometimes on the back of her jacket. Amethyst has star-shaped cutouts over her knees in her early design, later replaced by star patches on her shorts. Garnet wears a star on her chest. Even Peridot, once she defects to the Crystal Gems, eventually incorporates the shape into her own outfit. The star is everywhere, it is constant, and it is not decorative. During the development of the original pilot, Rebecca Sugar had a conversation with Hellboy creator Mike Mignola about the importance of repetitive imagery in building a visual mythology. Mignola advised her to pay attention to Ishtar, the ancient goddess of war, love, and fertility, and to find a symbol that could anchor the entire world of the show. Sugar chose the star, 5 points for 5 core crystal gems: ruby, sapphire, pearl, amethyst, and Steven. A shape associated with space, with aspiration, with the kind of gold star a child earns in school. Something universal, something that did not belong to any one character, but to all of them. And so the star became the brand of the rebellion. Not a diamond, not a triangle. A star, the shape that Homeworld never uses. The shape that says, simply and clearly, we are not what we were made to be. That is already a layered piece of design work. But the show goes further than symbols. It goes into the bodies of the characters themselves. There is a widely discussed fan theory, supported by enough evidence to feel almost like canon, that the placement of a gem on a character's body corresponds to their personality. Forehead gems tend to belong to analytical, cerebral characters. Pearl carries her gem there, right at the centre of her forehead, and she is the strategist, the planner, the one who thinks before she acts and then thinks again after. Peridot's gem sits in the same location, and she is the technician, the problem solver, the gem who approaches the world as a system of variables to be understood and optimised. Chest gems, positioned near where a human heart would be, belong to characters who lead with emotion. Amethyst wears her gem over her chest, and she is the most emotionally impulsive of the crystal gems, the one who acts on feeling rather than logic, who loves hard and hurts hard, and does not always know the difference. Bismuth, whose gem sits in a similar position, follows her convictions with an intensity that borders on recklessness. Garnet has gems on both hands, and she is the fighter, the protector, the one who expresses herself through action more than words. Her hands are how she engages with the world, literally and figuratively. Jasper's gem is on her nose, and she is hard-nosed in every possible sense of the word. Stubborn, confrontational, unwilling to yield. And then there is Steven, whose gem sits on his navel, the point of connection between a mother and a child, the place where life is literally sustained before birth. The symbolism is almost too perfect. Steven's gem marks him as the inheritor, the continuation, the being who exists because someone else gave themselves up so he could. The show never confirms this theory explicitly. Rebecca Sugar has not drawn a diagram mapping gem placement to personality type, but the consistency is striking enough that it feels intentional. It feels like another layer of design language operating beneath the dialogue and the plot, quietly telling you who these characters are before they ever open their mouths. And then there is colour. Steven Universe uses colour with a precision that borders borders on obsessive. Every character exists within a carefully chosen palette, and those palettes are not random. They are arguments. The crystal gems are built from warm tones. Stephen is pink and red. Garnet is deep red with violet. Amethyst is purple, leaning warm. Pearl shifts across her regenerations but stays in the range of soft peach cream and pale blue that reads as cool but inviting. The Homeworld gems, by contrast, are cooler and more saturated. Blue diamond is deep, cold blue. Yellow diamond is sharp, acidic yellow. White diamond is pure, blinding white, the absence of colour entirely. The visual language is clear. Warmth means earth, means connection, means the choice to feel. Coolness means homeworld, means control, means the suppression of feeling in favour of function. But the show does not stop at simple warm versus cool symbolism. It layers those palettes in ways that reveal character history and internal conflict. Lapis Lazuli is one of the coldest toned characters in the show, all deep ocean blue and dark navy, and she is also one of the most emotionally damaged. Her colour palette reads like homeworld, like authority, like distance. And that makes sense because Lapis never chose to be on Earth. She was trapped here. Her colours tell you that she does not belong to this world, even when she is standing in it. Peridot starts as a sharp, almost clinical green, all technology and efficiency, and as she grows closer to the crystal gems, her colour interactions shift. She starts appearing in warmer lighting, in scenes saturated with the oranges and pinks of sunset on the beach. The environment around her changes to meet her, or maybe she changes to meet it. Either way, the show is using colour to track her transformation from homeworld loyalist to crystal gem without ever saying it in words. The way fusion designs work takes this colour language and compounds it. When two gems fuse, their resulting form is not just a larger body with extra arms. It is a visual argument about the relationship between the two individuals. Opal, the fusion of pearl and amethyst, carries pearl's elegance in her elongated form and amethyst's wildness in her flowing hair. Her weapon combines pearl's spear and amethyst's whip into a longbow, the spear forming the body of the bow, the whip becoming the string, and the energy blasts of the spear transforming into arrows. It is graceful and fierce at the same time. It is what pearl and amethyst become when they stop fighting each other and start working together, and the design tells you that instantly before a single line of dialogue is spoken. Garnet, who is herself a permanent fusion of ruby and sapphire, combines ruby's square, compact physicality with sapphire's flowing, ethereal softness. Her colours blend warm red and cool blue into deep purple and crimson. Her two gems, one on each hand, represent the balance between action and foresight, impulse and patience, heat and stillness. Every single element of Garnet's design is a conversation between two people who love each other enough to be one person, and the show trusts you to read that conversation without needing it explained. Until it does explain it in the episode Jailbreak, and suddenly everything you noticed about Garnet's design snaps into focus with devastating clarity. Then there is Malachite, the forced fusion of jasper and lapis lazuli, and here the design language turns dark. Malachite is enormous and unstable. She has too many limbs. Her features are distorted, asymmetric, wrong. The more unbalanced a fusion and the worse the component gem's relationship, the more the individual pieces stick out of the resulting form, like a body that cannot decide what shape it wants to be. Malachite is what fusion looks like when it is not love, when it is desperation and control and mutual destruction dressed up as togetherness. Her design does not need to tell you this. You feel it. You feel that something about her is broken, and the feeling is coming entirely from how she looks. Rose Quartz too has design elements that reward a second look. Her hair, those massive spiraling pink curls that cascade around her form, follows a specific pattern. The curls spiral outward in shapes that echo the nautilus shell, the seashell, the logarithmic spiral found throughout nature. It is a subtle but deliberate reference to the natural world that Rose fell in love with, the world she gave up everything to protect. Her hair does not look like gem construction. It looks like something that that grew, something organic, and that is the point. Rose quartz is a gem who chose to be more like the Earth than like Homeworld, and her design reflects that choice all the way down to the shape of her curls. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Now, if the design secrets of Steven Universe reward careful observation, the foreshadowing rewards something closer to obsession. Because this is a show that planted seeds in its first season that did not bloom until its fifth, and in some cases, not until the epilogue series Steven Universe Future, and the patience of that planting, the discipline of it, is staggering. Start with Cookie Cat, the ice cream treat from the very first episode, Gem Glow. Steven sings a jingle about Cookie Cat, a catchy little song that plays like a throwaway gag about a discontinued snack. But the lyrics describe a pet who was a refugee from an interstellar war, who left his family behind, who came to Earth and found a new home. That is the story of Rose Quartz. That is the story of Pink Diamond, a being from space caught in a war who abandoned everything she knew for the sake of this planet. The jingle is a summary of the entire series compressed into 30 seconds of a child singing about ice cream, but it goes deeper than the lyrics. The Cookie Cat itself is designed with two halves, one vanilla and one strawberry, one white and one pink. Those are the two colours of Pink Diamond's existence. White for her place in the Diamond Authority, the pale skin of her original form, pink for everything she became after. The treat is two different things joined into one body, just like Steven, just like Rose. The very first object the show introduces, the very first thing Steven cares about, is a mirror of his own nature, half human, half gem, half ordinary, half cosmic. Two halves that should not fit together but do. It is the kind of detail that feels like a coincidence on first viewing and feels like inevitability on the fifth. And then there is the Diamond Authority symbol, and the way the show tracks its evolution across centuries of in-universe history. On the oldest structures, the ones built before the rebellion, the symbol is a diamond divided into 4 sections, white at the top, yellow on the right, blue on the left, pink at the bottom. 4 diamonds, 4 rulers. The shape itself is a diamond, 4-sided, one side for each member of the authority. But on newer structures, the ones built after Pink Diamond's supposed shattering, the symbol changes. The pink section disappears. The remaining 3 sections rearrange themselves into overlapping triangles rather than a diamond. 3 sides, 3 rulers. The very geometry of the symbol shifts to account for the absence. The show never points at this detail and says, "Look, did you notice?" It simply puts it there, on the walls and floors and ceilings of Homeworld architecture, and trusts you to notice or not notice on your own terms. It is world building as archaeological record, the kind of detail you might find in a museum, where the change in a symbol across centuries tells you more about a civilization's history than any written account ever could. The murals deserve their own moment of attention. In the Season 1 episode, Sirius Steven, and the Crystal Gems enter the Pyramid Temple, and on its walls there is a mural depicting Rose Quartz in battle with a diamond-shaped figure. On first viewing, this reads as a historical record of the rebellion, Rose Quartz fighting against a diamond. Straightforward, expected. But look at the composition. The 2 figures are positioned as mirrors of each other, symmetrical, equal, as though they are 2 halves of the same image. And when you later learn the truth, that Rose Quartz and Pink Diamond are the same person, that mural transforms into something entirely different. It is not a record of a battle between 2 enemies. It is a portrait of a single being at war with herself. The show put that portrait on a wall in its 8th episode and waited 4.5 years for anyone to understand what they were looking at. Then there is the matter of Pink Diamond's shadow, or rather her presence in those early diamond depictions. When the show first introduces the concept of the Diamond Authority, the designs are rough, the mythology is still crystallizing. But the proportions and placement of the pink section, the way it sits at the bottom of the insignia, smaller than the others, subordinate, tell you everything about Pink Diamond's position in the hierarchy before you ever meet her. She is the smallest section, the lowest, the one one the structure could most easily excise without collapsing, and it did. The 3-diamond insignia functions perfectly without her. That is the cruelest detail of all. The symbol works just fine with pink diamond removed, which means the authority itself worked just fine without her. She was, in the eyes of her family, expendable, and the show encoded that expendability into a geometric symbol that appears on screen dozens of times before anyone fully understands what it means. Rose's sword is another piece of foreshadowing that only reveals its full significance in retrospect. Bismuth, the crystal gem blacksmith, describes the sword as her finest piece of work. She designed it specifically at Rose's request to be capable of destroying a gem's physical form in a single strike while being completely incapable of shattering the gemstone itself. A sword that can poof but never kill, a weapon of mercy built for a war. On first hearing, this sounds like it reflects Rose Quartz's compassion, her refusal to destroy even her enemies permanently. But once you know that Rose is pink diamond, the sword's design takes on a completely different meaning. If Rose's sword cannot shatter a gem, then Rose's sword cannot have shattered pink diamond. The murder weapon is physically incapable of committing the murder. The show hands you this information openly, clearly, in an episode named after the character who made the sword, and it trusts the story you have already accepted to prevent you from making the connection, because you believe you already know what happened. You believe Rose shattered pink diamond with that sword, and Bismuth is telling you to your face that the sword cannot do that. The truth is sitting right there, and the show is betting that you will not pick it up. The Bismuth connection goes even deeper, and it stretches back further than most people realise. In the Season 1 episode Lion 3, straight to video, Steven enters Lion's Mane for the first time and discovers a hidden dimension, a vast pink savanna with a single tree at its centre. Around that tree, tucked among Rose's most treasured possessions, there is a bubbled gemstone. It is visible in the background, just sitting there, unexplained. At the time, nobody in the audience knows what it is. It is just a bubble with the gem inside it, one detail among many in a strange and beautiful hidden space. But that bubble contains Bismuth, a crystal gem who fought alongside Rose in the war, who was bubbled and hidden away because she wanted to use a weapon that could actually shatter diamonds. A weapon called the Breaking Point. Rose refused. They fought. Rose won. And then Rose put Bismuth in a bubble and hid her inside Lion's Mane and never told anyone what happened. That bubble sits in the background of Lion 3, straight to video for the entire episode. It is there when Steven finds Rose's sword. It is there when he discovers the videotape. It is there, patient and silent, holding a character and a secret that the show would not reveal for another 2 seasons. And when the episode Bismuth finally airs, when Steven accidentally pops that bubble and a full-sized gem warrior regenerates in his living room, the show retroactively transforms every scene set in Lion's Mane into something heavier. Every time Steven entered that dimension, he was standing next to a person Rose had imprisoned. Every time he walked past that bubble, he was walking past a secret his mother kept from everyone, including the crystal gems, who thought Bismuth was simply lost in the war. That videotape Steven finds in the same episode, the one labelled for Steven in Rose's handwriting, is its own kind of hidden depth. Rose recorded a message for her son before he was born, before she ceased to exist. The tape shows clips of the beach, of Greg, of the temple before the house was built. And then Rose speaks directly to the camera, directly to Steven, and she tells him the truth about what his birth means. She tells him that they cannot both exist at the same time. That once he is born, she will become half of him. That when he loves being himself, that will be her loving him. And she tells him he will be extraordinary because he will be a human being. Not extraordinary because of his powers. Not extraordinary because of his gem. Extraordinary because of his humanity. The scene is devastating on its own, but it becomes even more so when you understand who Rose really is. This is Pink Diamond, one of the most powerful beings in the universe, recording a goodbye message in which she tells her son that the most extraordinary thing about him will be the part part of him that is not her, the part that is fragile and mortal and capable of growing in ways a gem never can. Lion himself is a piece of foreshadowing that the show hides in plain sight for years. A magical pink lion who appears out of nowhere in the desert, who can create portals with his roar, who contains a pocket dimension inside his mane, who seems mysteriously connected to rose quartz. The show never explains Lion's origin in the original series. He is simply there, pink and patient and inexplicable, but the answer is embedded in his colour, pink. Everything connected to rose quartz is pink. And everything connected to Pink Diamond's specific power, her ability to heal, to resurrect, to bring things back from the edge of death, is also pink. Lion was once an ordinary lion who befriended Rose Quartz in the desert hundreds of years ago. He died, and Rose brought him back. Her healing powers, the same powers Steven inherits, can do more than fix injuries. They can reverse death itself. And the price, or the consequence, or maybe just the signature of that power, is that everything it touches turns pink. The skin, the hair, the colour itself becomes a mark of resurrection. This exact mechanism reappears centuries later with Lars. Lars Barriga, a human teenager from Beach City, dies on Homeworld after being struck down while protecting the Off-Colors, a group of misfit gems hiding from the Diamond Authority. Steven, grieving and desperate, cries over Lars's body. His tears, carrying the same healing power as Rose's, bring Lars back to life, and Lars turns pink. His skin, his hair, all of it, the same shade as Lion. And when Steven discovers that Lars's hair now functions as a portal to the same pink dimension inside Lion's mane, everything clicks into place. Lion and Lars are the same, not the same being, but the same phenomenon. Both were brought back from death by Pink Diamond's power, and both carry the mark of that resurrection in their colour and their connection to the pocket dimension. The show planted this mystery in its 10th episode, when Lion first appears, and did not fully resolve it until the 5th season, when Steven watches his tears bring a dead teenager back to life on an alien planet. That is the kind of patience most shows cannot even imagine, let alone execute. There are other buried objects in the early seasons that carry more weight than they seem to at first. The desert glass which appears in the season 1 episode Steven's Lion is a gemstone trapped inside a pillow, not bubbled, not poofed, trapped in an object. The crystal gems treat it as dangerous, something too powerful to contain through normal means. When it touches sand, it creates massive structures, pillars and walls and fortresses rising from the desert floor, as if the gem inside is trying to build something, trying to make a home, trying to assert its existence even while imprisoned. The show never returns to the desert glass in a major way, but its existence raises questions that ripple outward through the entire mythology. How many other gems are trapped in objects, sealed away in artifacts, hidden in places where nobody thinks to look? The desert glass is a reminder that the world of Steven Universe is littered with the casualties of a war that ended thousands of years ago, and some of those casualties are still conscious, still trying, still building walls in the desert because it is the only thing they can do. The shooting star, retrieved by the crystal gems in the season 1 episode Monster Buddies, is another artifact that gestures toward a larger world. It is a small, spiky cluster of pink and blue crystals, partially encased in ice, and it is extraordinarily dangerous. Pearl notes that bare skin cannot endure its intensity. When pressure is applied to it, it detonates with enough force to destroy the crystal temple entirely, a fact the show demonstrates in an alternate timeline shown in the episode Winter Forecast. The shooting star is a gem weapon, not in the sense of a sword or a shield summoned from a gemstone, but in the sense of a piece of technology so powerful it borders on catastrophic. It is the kind of object that makes you realize the gem war was not fought with conventional weapons. It was fought with things that could reshape geography. And then there are the moments that cut deeper than mystery, the moments where the show's hidden details are not about lore or mythology, but about the emotional architecture of its characters. In the season 1 episode Maximum Capacity, Amethyst and Greg attempt to clean out Greg's storage unit. The unit contains Rose's belongings, the physical remnants of a life that ended when Steven was born, paintings, furniture, objects that Rose touched and used and cared about, all packed away in a rented space because Greg could not bring himself to throw them out but could not bear to keep them close. The episode plays as a comedy at first. Greg and Amethyst getting distracted by old VHS tapes of a sitcom called Lil Butler, binge-watching instead of cleaning. But underneath the comedy, something darker is happening. Amethyst is angry. She misses Rose, and she resents Greg for being the reason Rose is gone, because Rose gave up her existence to create Steven, and Steven exists because Rose fell in love with Greg. And in the climax of the episode, Amethyst does something genuinely cruel. She shapeshifts into Rose Quartz. She takes on Rose's form, Rose's face, Rose's voice, and she turns to Greg and uses that form against him. Greg's reaction tells you everything. He turns away. He does not yell. He does not fight. He turns away and asks her to stop. And then he says something that reveals this has happened before. He says he wants to be friends again, but he cannot let her do this to him again. This is not the first time Amethyst has used Rose's form as a weapon against Greg. It is implied to be the reason they stopped spending time together. Amethyst, in her grief and her resentment, has been using her shape-shifting ability to torment the person who she blames for taking Rose away. And the show presents this in the first season, in what appears to be a light-hearted filler episode. And it does it with such restraint that you might not even register the full weight of what just happened until you think about it afterward. There is no dramatic music. There is no speech about how wrong it is. Greg turns away. Amethyst knows she went too far. And the episode ends with something close to reconciliation, but not quite there. The wound is too deep. It will take seasons to fully heal. That storage unit itself is a piece of emotional world building. Greg Universe is a man who lives in a van. He has almost nothing, but he has a storage unit full of the belongings of a woman who no longer exists. Things he pays to preserve every month. Things he cannot use and cannot discard. That is grief compressed into a monthly rental fee. That is love expressed as an unwillingness to let go of the physical evidence that someone was real. The show does not explain this. It does not need to. It simply shows you a man opening a storage unit door and looking at the remains of his life with someone who became half of his son, and it trusts you to understand what that means. The Watermelon Stevens are one of the show's strangest and most quietly profound details. In the season 1 episode Watermelon Steven, Steven accidentally creates a group of sentient watermelon creatures using his powers. They are alive and they are loyal to him, and they eventually wander off into the world. The show could have left them as a one-off joke, a weird episode that gets referenced occasionally and then forgotten. But it does not. In the season 3 premiere, Super Watermelon Island, the show reveals that the Watermelon Stevens travelled across the ocean to Mask Island and built an entire civilization. They have housing, farming, hunting tools, clothing, social roles. They have developed watermelon chickens and watermelon dogs through some form of organic derivation. They have culture. They have community. They have a way of life that they built entirely on their own, without Steven, without guidance, without instruction. And by the time of the episode Escapism, the Watermelon Stevens have split into 2 distinct tribes with different values and different belief systems. One group remains pacifist, worshipping the memory of Baby Melon, the first Watermelon Steven who sacrificed itself. The other group has become more militaristic, shaped by the violence of the battle between Malachite and Alexandrite that took place on their island. Steven's creations have developed ideology. They have developed schism. They are, in miniature, doing exactly what every civilization does, splitting along lines of belief, interpreting history differently, building identities around different narratives of the same events. The show uses sentient watermelons to demonstrate that the impulse to build societies and argue about what they mean is not uniquely human or uniquely gem, it is universal. And it started because a 14-year-old boy accidentally brought some fruit to life. Steven's relationship with his own body is another detail the show plants early and develops slowly. In the season 1 episode So Many Birthdays, Steven learns something disturbing about himself. His physical age is not determined by time. It is determined by how he feels. When he feels old, when he feels the weight of responsibility and loss, and the gap between who he is and who he thinks he should be, his body ages. ages. He grows taller, broader, older, until he is approaching death, withering on the beach while the crystal gems try desperately to bring him back. And when they remind him of who he is, when they break through the spiral of self-doubt and make him feel like himself again, he shrinks back to normal. His body resets. This mechanism returns in the season 2 episode, Steven's Birthday, where the opposite happens. Steven, anxious about being the same size he has always been while his friend Connie grows taller, briefly inflates himself to look older. And when that facade collapses, he reverts not to his normal form, but to a baby. His body is only as old as he feels. And when he feels small, when he feels like a child pretending to be something he is not, his body agrees. This is not just a quirky power. This is the show telling you, in its first season, that Steven's body is a mirror of his emotional state. And that detail becomes critical in Steven Universe Future, when Steven's unprocessed trauma and escalating anxiety begin to manifest as uncontrollable physical transformations. The corruption that threatens to consume him in the finale is not a disease. It is not an attack from an external enemy. It is Steven's body doing exactly what it has always done, reflecting how he feels. The show set that up in episode 13 and paid it off in the final episode of the epilogue series. Years later, the seed and the harvest, separated by the entire run of the show. The centipedal, later revealed to be a gem named Nifrite, is a character whose story is told almost entirely through drawings. In the season 1 episode Monster Buddies, Steven befriends a corrupted gem, a creature that looks like a massive centipede and communicates through screeches and acid spit. Steven manages to partially heal her, enough that she regains fragments of her personality, but not her ability to speak. And so she draws. She draws pictures to tell Steven her story. Crude, shaky drawings on pieces of paper, the kind of art a child might make, because that is the level of communication corruption has left her with. And in those drawings, she reveals something enormous. She draws 3 diamond shapes in the sky. She draws light pouring down from them. She draws herself and other gems on the ground below, being consumed by that light. Nephrite is showing Steven the corrupting light, the attack the 3 remaining diamonds launched at the end of the war, a blast designed to destroy every gem left on Earth. It did not destroy them, it corrupted them. It stripped them of their minds, their forms, their identities, and turned them into monsters. Every corrupted gem Steven has fought, every creature the crystal gems have bubbled and stored in the temple, was once a person, a soldier, someone with a name and a rank and a commander and a life. And Nephrite is telling Steven this through crayon drawings, because the attack took everything else from her. The weight of that scene only registers fully when you understand the scale of it. The diamonds did not just lose a war, they punished an entire planet for it. Every gem left on Earth, crystal gem and homeworld loyalist alike, was corrupted. Nifrite was not a rebel. She was a homeworld soldier, a captain serving under a Hessonite commander who was simply unable to evacuate in time. She was punished not for defiance, but for being in the wrong place. The diamonds did not distinguish between enemies and their own soldiers. They simply destroyed everything. And Nephrite has been living as a monster on Earth for thousands of years because of it, unable to speak, unable to think clearly, unable to do anything but attack and cower, and when Steven is kind enough to try, draw pictures of what she remembers. Steven Universe Future deserves a moment here because its opening sequence is itself a kind of hidden detail. The original series opens with "We Are the Crystal Gems," a theme song about unity, about belonging, about a group of people who chose to protect the Earth and found each other in the process. It is warm, it is communal, every crystal gem gets a line. The final image is Steven surrounded by his family on the beach, together. The future opening uses a modified version of Happily Ever After from the Steven Universe movie, and the differences are telling. The silhouettes in the opening sequence include not just allies, but threats: aquamarine, jasper, strange new lapis lazulis, a cactus monster, and most significantly, a massive shadowed creature that the audience would not recognize until the final episodes. That creature is Steven, corrupted Steven, the monster he becomes when his trauma overwhelms him entirely. The opening sequence of Steven Universe Future puts the final villain of the show in its title card, and the final villain is the main character. The show told you how it would end before it even began. began, and it did it so quietly that almost nobody noticed until the ending arrived. There is one more piece of foreshadowing that ties so many threads together, it almost feels like the show is taunting you with how obvious it all was, and it involves lapis lazuli. Lapis spends thousands of years trapped inside a mirror, not a regular mirror, a gem artifact designed to record and replay events, used by Homeworld as a kind of living archive. But Lapis is not in the mirror voluntarily, she is imprisoned in it. Her gemstone is physically embedded in the back of the mirror, and she is conscious the entire time. She can see, she can hear, she can reflect back what is shown to her. But she cannot act, she cannot speak in her own voice. She can only show others what they want to see, replaying scenes and images like a prisoner, forced to perform the same gestures over and over. The philosophical resonance is difficult to ignore. Plato describes a cave in which prisoners are chained facing a wall, unable to turn around, watching shadows projected by a fire behind them. Those shadows are the only reality the prisoners know. They believe the shadows are the truth because the shadows are all they have ever seen. And when one prisoner is freed and dragged into the sunlight, the real world is so overwhelming that it causes pain. The freed prisoner does not want to see the truth. The truth is blinding. Lapis, trapped in her mirror, exists in a state remarkably similar. She perceives the world only through what is shown to her, reflecting it back without the ability to engage with it directly. When Stephen frees her by pulling her gem from the mirror's surface, she emerges into a world she does not recognize, a world that has moved on without her, a world where the war ended thousands of years ago and nobody came to let her out. The sunlight, metaphorically speaking, is unbearable. Lapis does not react to freedom with joy. She reacts with grief, with rage, with an overwhelming desire to go home to a homeworld that no longer exists in the form she remembers. She was trapped in a mirror, watching shadows, and when the mirror broke, the world outside was not what she expected. It was not what she wanted, and that dissonance defines her entire character arc. The show never explicitly references Plato. It does not need to. The parallel is structural, woven into the fabric of how Lapis's story is told, and it operates whether or not the viewer has ever read The Republic. That is the sign of genuinely thoughtful writing. The reference enriches the experience for those who recognize it and does not diminish the experience for those who do not. There are parallels of a different kind too. Rebecca Sugar has spoken openly about the influence of anime on Steven Universe, and one of the most visible influences is Neon Genesis Evangelion, Hideaki Anno's legendary 1995 series about teenagers piloting giant biological machines to fight alien threats while slowly collapsing under the psychological weight of it. The connections between the two shows are numerous and varied. In the episode The Test, the Crystal Gems congratulate Steven in a sequence that mirrors the infamous congratulations scene from the final episode of Evangelion, right down to the framing and the piano music. Alexandrite, the fusion of garnet, amethyst, and pearl, opens a second mouth during the battle in Super Watermelon Island in a way that directly echoes Unit 01 going berserk in Evangelion. The Laser Light Cannon episode, in which the crystal gems use a massive cannon to destroy a threatening object in the sky, parallels Evangelion episode 6, where Shinji and Rei use a positron rifle to take down a crystalline angel. Even the dream sequence in Kiki's pizza delivery service, with pizza slices jutting out of an ethereal ocean, uncomfortably resembles the final scene of End of Evangelion, with the mass production Evangelion standing frozen in a vast Red Sea. But the deeper connection is thematic. Both shows are, at their core, about what happens when you ask children to save the world and then wonder why they are falling apart. Steven and Shinji Ikari are separated by decades and continents and art styles, but they share a fundamental experience. The experience of being a child given a burden that no child should carry, surrounded by adults who need them too much to notice the damage being done. Steven Universe Future makes this connection almost explicit, dedicating its entire run to the aftermath of Steven's heroism, to the PTSD and anxiety and identity crisis that follow the adventure, to the question of what happens to the chosen one after the choosing is done. Fluorite, the 6-gem fusion introduced in the Off-Colors arc, represents a kind of relationship the show does not explain but does not hide either. Rebecca Sugar confirmed at San Diego Comic-Con in 2017 that fluorite is a representation of a polyamorous relationship. 6 gems, all choosing to be part of one fusion, all consenting, all present in the relationship. Sugar said the idea came partly from conversations at an LGBTQ center in Long Beach, where young people told her what kinds of representation they wanted to see. Fluorite is slow. She speaks in long, drawn-out sentences because 6 minds are collaborating on every word. She is gentle. She is patient. She is a visual argument that love does not have to be limited to 2, that a relationship involving 6 individuals can be stable and kind and real. The show puts her on screen, lets her exist without apology or explanation, and trusts the audience to understand what they are seeing. And with that, perhaps the most remarkable thing about Steven Universe is not any single Easter egg or hidden detail, it is the density. It is the fact that a show about a boy with a gemstone in his belly button managed to hide this much meaning in this many places, across this many episodes, over this many years. Every design choice is an argument, every colour is a statement, every background detail is a seed planted for a harvest that might not come for seasons. The show does not just reward rewatching, it practically demands it, because the first time through, you are watching a story. The second time through, you are watching a blueprint. And the third time, you start to realise that the blueprint and the story were always the same thing. You just needed to see it from a different angle, and all of those design choices and visual breadcrumbs lead us somewhere deeper, because once you start looking at Steven Universe through the lens of its production, through the names and the voices and the people behind the screen, you realise that the Easter eggs are not just drawn into the backgrounds. They are woven into the very fabric of how this show was made. Let us start with something that hides in plain sight. The episode titles. Steven Universe is a show that treats its episode names as miniature puzzles, and some of the best examples come in pairs. Consider Mirror Gem and Ocean Gem, the 2-part mid-season finale of the first season. These are not just descriptions of what happens in each episode, they are 2 different ways of describing the same character. Lapis Lazuli begins the arc trapped inside a mirror, defined by captivity, reduced to an object that reflects the world without ever participating in it. By the second episode, she has reclaimed her elemental identity, commanding the ocean itself. The shift from mirror to ocean traces her transformation from prisoner to force of nature, and both titles end with the word gem, a reminder that beneath the mirror and beneath the ocean there is a person. The parallel structure of the titles mirrors the duality of Lapis herself, a character perpetually torn between confinement and freedom, between stillness and overwhelming power. This kind of wordplay runs throughout the entire series. Hit the Diamond is perhaps the most elegant example. On the surface, the title refers to baseball. The episode features the crystal gems disguising themselves as humans to play a baseball game against a squad of ruby soldiers sent by Homeworld. The baseball diamond is the literal playing field. But there is another layer. The episode is also about confronting a diamond, about the looming threat of Yellow Diamond that hangs over the entire 3rd season. To hit the diamond is to strike at the heart of Homeworld authority. The pun works in both directions simultaneously, which is a small miracle of title writing. It captures the absurd comedy of the episode, gems playing baseball with names like Bob and Sophie, while also nodding toward the larger stakes that drive the narrative forward. Then there is Together Alone, which operates as a mirror to the first season episode, Alone Together. In that earlier episode, Steven and Connie fuse for the first time, becoming Stevonnie. The title captures the paradox of fusion itself. 2 people who are alone become together, and in doing so create something that is both at once. Together Alone inverts this. Set during a formal diamond ball on Homeworld, Steven and Connie accidentally fuse into Stevonnie in front of the entire court. The diamonds react with horror. Stevonnie is imprisoned. They are together, fused, unified, but utterly alone. The title takes the warmth of alone together and freezes it. What was once a celebration of connection becomes an indictment of a society that cannot tolerate it. The reversal of the two words changes everything. And then there is the title that carries perhaps the heaviest weight of all, A Single Pale Rose. This is the episode that finally confirms what many fans had suspected for years, that rose quartz and pink diamond are the same person. The title works on several levels. Literally, a single pale rose appears as an image on Pearl's phone, a message that triggers the entire revelation. But in the language of flowers, a pale rose carries meanings of secrecy, of things left unsaid, of beauty that conceals something beneath the surface. A single pale rose is also, quite literally, what Pink Diamond became. She shed her diamond identity and became one singular rose quartz gem. The word single does quiet, devastating work. There is only one. There was only ever one. And the word pale suggests something faded, something that has lost its original colour. Pink Diamond's vibrant authority drained away into something softer, gentler, but also less honest. These 4 episode titles alone demonstrate something fundamental about the way Steven Universe operates. The show does not treat titles as labels. It treats them as compressed arguments, as tiny thesis statements that unfold into multiple readings the more you think about them. There are dozens of other examples scattered across the series. Jailbreak refers to the literal escape from Jasper's ship, but also to Ruby and Sapphire breaking free from the jail of Homeworld's fusion taboo, and to the audience breaking free from the assumption that Garnet was a single gem. Keystone Motel takes its name from the Keystone State, Pennsylvania, but a keystone is also the central stone that holds an arch together, which is exactly what the Ruby-Sapphire relationship is to Garnet. The wordplay is never flashy. It never calls attention to itself. It simply sits there, waiting for someone to turn the title over in their mind and notice the second face looking back. The naming conventions extend far beyond episode titles and into the characters themselves. Every gem name in Steven Universe corresponds to a real mineral, and the properties of those minerals are mapped onto the personalities of the characters with surprising precision. Pearl is perhaps the most layered example. In the real world, pearls are not technically gemstones at all. They are organic formations, created when an oyster coats an irritant with layer after layer of nacre, building something beautiful around something painful. In the show, pearls are not treated as real gems either. They are servants, accessories, status symbols for the diamonds who own them. The phrase clutching her pearls describes someone reacting with exaggerated shock or propriety, and Pearl's character leans into that association with her sometimes dramatic reactions and her devotion to order and elegance. But the deeper connection is in how real pearls form. They are protective layers built around a source of irritation, and Pearl is, at her core, a protector. She builds her entire identity around shielding others, around coating pain in grace. Jasper, by contrast, is historically known as a warrior's stone. Soldiers carried Jasper as a talisman, believing it would grant them courage and endurance in battle. Jasper in the show is the quintessential warrior, devoted to hierarchy, to strength, to the idea that power determines worth. The stone suits the character so perfectly that it almost feels inevitable, as though the mineral was always waiting for this particular story. Amethyst carries an irony that feels intentional. The word amethyst comes from the Greek amethystos, meaning not drunk or not intoxicated. In ancient tradition, amethyst was believed to prevent drunkenness and promote sobriety. And yet Amethyst, the character, is the most hedonistic, most indulgent member of the crystal gems. She eats voraciously, shapeshifts for fun, acts on impulse, and embraces recklessness as a lifestyle. The name is a contradiction, a small joke embedded in the character's very identity. And then there is Garnet, whose name contains a secret that mirrors her greatest reveal. In real mineralogy, garnet is not a single mineral. It is a mineral group, a family of related species that share a common crystal structure but vary in composition. A garnet can be almandine, pyrope, spessartine, grossula, andradite, or Uvaravite. Among others, it is, by its very nature, multiple things occupying the same form. Garnet in the show is a fusion, two gems inhabiting one body. She is not one. She has never been one. Her name told us from the beginning. Rebecca Sugar has confirmed that this connection was intentional, that she chose the name Garnet precisely because it described a group rather than a singular entity. The reveal of Garnet's nature in Jailbreak is one of the most celebrated moments in the series, and knowing that the answer was embedded in her name from the very first episode gives that moment an additional layer. The show was not hiding the truth, it was stating it plainly, in a language most viewers did not think to read. Lapis Lazuli deserves mention here as well. In historical tradition, lapis lazuli has been associated with truth and wisdom for thousands of years. Ancient Egyptians ground it into powder for cosmetics and pigments. Medieval Europeans called it the stone of truth. In the show, Lapai's entire arc revolves around truth. She is imprisoned based on false pretenses, mistaken for a crystal gem by homeworld soldiers who trap her inside a mirror. When she is freed, her presence forces the crystal gems to confront uncomfortable truths about the gem war and its casualties. She is a character defined by the gap between what is believed and what actually happened, between the official narrative and the lived reality. The stone of truth, trapped in a mirror that can only show reflections. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously. Now, the names of Beach City's human residents carry their own quiet jokes. The Pizza family runs Fish Stew Pizza. The Fryman family runs Beach City Walk Fries. These are food-based surnames attached to food service workers, a gag so straightforward that it almost disappears into the background. But it serves a purpose. Beach City is a small town, and small towns in fiction are built on these kinds of associations, where a family's name and a family's trade become inseparable, where identity and occupation blur together. The Pizzas and the Frymans are not just running businesses, they are their businesses. The names root them in the community and make Beach City feel like a place where everyone has always been exactly where they are. This same attention to naming extends to the cool kids. Buck Dewey, Jenny Pizza, and Sour Cream are three teenagers who seem, at first glance, to exist purely as a counterpoint to Steven's earnestness. They are laid back, effortlessly cool, and seemingly uncomplicated, but the show gradually reveals depth beneath the surface, and there is a fan theory, widely accepted and bolstered by visual evidence, that each of the cool kids parallels a specific crystal gem. Sour Cream is tall, thin, pale, and has a hairstyle and colour scheme that echo pearl. Jenny has amethyst's eyes and lips, her carefree, tomboyish energy. Buck wears sunglasses that function like Garnet's visor, hiding his emotions behind a cool exterior while being the most powerful member of the group by virtue of his father's position, just as Garnet is the most powerful crystal gem by virtue of being a fusion. The parallels extend to personality. Buck is stoic and independent. Jenny is fun-loving and counter-dependent. Sour Cream is cerebral and artistic. These three teenagers mirror the three gems so precisely that it feels like the character designers embedded a second crystal gem team into Beach City's human population, a shadow version that walks the same streets and faces the same kinds of conflicts through an entirely human lens. Buck Dewey is the son of Mayor Bill Dewey, and his last name is itself a reference. Dewey Beach is one of the real coastal towns in Delaware that Beach City is modelled after. Buck lives under the weight of his father's public position, constantly told to behave respectably so as not to damage the mayor's image. His sunglasses, his stoic demeanour, his apparent detachment, these are not just personality traits. They are a shield. He hides behind cool the way his father hides behind politics. Sour Cream carries a more complicated family story. He is the biological son of Marty, Greg Universe's former manager, a fast-talking opportunist who abandoned Vidalia and their child. Yellowtail, the fisherman who speaks in unintelligible murmurs, is Sour Cream's stepfather, the man who actually raised him. Onion is Sour Cream's half-brother through Vidalia and Yellowtail. This tangled family tree is never delivered as exposition. It unfolds across multiple episodes through glances and tensions, and the careful avoidance of certain topics, the way real family complications tend to surface. The episode Drop Beat Dad confronts this directly when Marty reappears, and Sour Cream must reconcile the father who gave him his genetics with the father who gave him a home. And then there is Onion himself, who may be the single most deliberately mysterious character in the entire series. Steven says in one episode that he is not even sure Onion is human. The show never confirms or denies this. Onion does not speak in recognizable language. He behaves in ways that defy explanation, stealing, hoarding, staring blankly, committing small acts of chaos with an unsettling calm. Episodes devoted to Onion like Onion Trade, Onion Friend, and Onion Gang each peel back a layer of the mystery without ever resolving it. The crew has acknowledged the fan theories about Onion's nature, and in Onion Friend, they responded with a scene where Onion shows Steven a video of his own birth, a moment that simultaneously confirms he was born like any human child and does absolutely nothing to explain his behavior. The ambiguity is the point. Onion exists as a walking question mark, a reminder that not everything in Beach City can be neatly categorized. He is also, oddly, one of the most effective pieces of world building in the show. His strangeness makes Beach City feel lived in, because real towns have that one person, that one kid, that one neighbor whose behavior nobody can fully explain. Onion is not a plot device or a mystery to be solved. He is an atmosphere. He makes the town feel slightly stranger, slightly less predictable, slightly more like the kind of place where, yes, a family of alien warriors could live on the beach, and the local response would be a shrug. In Joyride, the cool kids demonstrate their hidden depth most clearly. Steven is struggling with the guilt and pressure of his magical responsibilities, and the three teenagers recognize it before any of the crystal gems do. They invite him to hang out, they let him be a kid. And when the gems arrive, ready to pull Steven back into duty, Buck tells them, directly and without aggression, that Steven needs a break. It is one of the few moments in the series where human characters advocate for Steven's well-being against the gems themselves. The cool kids, who seem like background decoration for most of their screen time, turn out to be the ones who see Steven most clearly. They are not blinded by destiny or duty or the weight of the gem war. They just see a kid who looks tired, and they do something about it. The hidden depth is not in their backstories, though those backstories exist. It is in their capacity for ordinary, unglamorous kindness. Speaking of things that resist easy categorization, let us talk about the people behind the voices. Because the casting of Steven Universe is not just good, it is layered with the same kind of intentionality that drives every other aspect of the show. Garnet is voiced by Estelle, full name Estelle Soiree, and this is not a case of a celebrity lending their name to a cartoon for marketing purposes. Estelle is a real musician, a British singer, songwriter, and rapper born in West London. Her single American Boy, featuring Kanye West, reached #1 in the United Kingdom and broke into the top 10 in the United States. It won the Grammy Award for Best Rap/Sung Collaboration in 2009. Rebecca Sugar designed Garnet while listening to Estelle's music. The character was built around the voice, not the other way around. This means that when Garnet sings Stronger Than You in the first season finale, she is not a cartoon character performing a song. She is a Grammy-winning artist performing a song written specifically for her vocal range and style by a songwriter who had been listening to her for years. The R&B flavour of the track, the confidence in the delivery, the way the melody sits in Estelle's register as though it was always meant to be there. All of this is deliberate. Garnet is the only crystal gem voiced by a professional recording artist, and the show uses that fact to make her musical moments feel qualitatively different from everyone else's. Pearl is voiced by Dee Dee Magno-Hall, and her background is just as significant. Before she ever stepped into a recording booth for Cartoon Network, Dee Dee Magno was a Mouseketeer. She appeared on the all-new Mickey Mouse Club from 1989 to 1993, the same revival series that featured a young Justin Timberlake, Britney Spears, Christina Aguilera, Aguilera and Ryan Gosling. She went on to perform on Broadway, starring as Nessarose in the first national tour of Wicked and the San Francisco sit-down production. Her professional singing background is the reason Pearl gets some of the most vocally demanding songs in the series. When Pearl sings "It's Over, Isn't It?" in the episode Mr. Greg, that performance requires the kind of technical precision and emotional control that comes from decades of professional stage work. The casting is not incidental, it is architectural. There is something worth pausing on here. Garnet is a fusion, a relationship given physical form, and she is voiced by an artist whose most famous song, American Boy, is itself about a relationship, about connection across distance, about two people finding each other. There is a resonance between the performer and the character that goes deeper than vocal timbre. Estelle understands, musically and emotionally, what it means to sing about being with someone. Garnet is, at every moment, about being with someone. The casting is not just clever, it is poetic. And then there is Zach Callison, who voiced Steven. Zach was a teenager when the show began production, and something happened during the recording process that no amount of planning could have anticipated. His voice changed, puberty arrived, and with it the natural deepening that transforms a boy's voice into a young man's. For a while, by Zach's own account, he simply did not know how to use his instrument anymore. It was a stressful period. Early in the series, he pitched his voice up to play Steven. After his voice changed, he had to pitch it down, and Steven began to sound noticeably older. The remarkable thing is that the show absorbed this change rather than fighting it. Steven's voice matures across the seasons in a way that feels organic, because it is organic. The character grows up because the actor grew up. There is no vocal trick, no post-production adjustment that can replicate what happens when a real person ages in real time. The show simply let it happen, and the result is a protagonist whose voice carries the literal passage of time. Ian Jones-Quartey, who served as supervising director and co-developer of the first season, also lent his voice to the show. He voiced minor characters, including the unsettling Cat Fingers creature in early episodes, and Snowflake Obsidian in Steven Universe Future. Ian is Rebecca Sugar's husband, and after his work on Steven Universe, he went on to create KKO Let's Be Heroes for Cartoon Network. The two shows share subtle cross-references, small acknowledgements that they emerged from the same creative household. Ian's presence in the voice cast is part of a broader pattern. The production team, who called themselves the Crewniverse, a portmanteau of crew and universe, frequently appeared as background characters in Beach City. Several townspeople are caricatures of real crew members. The line between the people who made the show and the world they made becomes, in these moments, pleasantly thin. The Crewniverse left their marks in other ways too. Background art in Steven Universe rewards close inspection. The storyboard artists who drove the show's production, people like Hilary Florido, Jeff Liu, Joe Johnston, and others, did not just draw scenes. They wrote dialogue, plotted action, and shaped the emotional texture of each episode. Steven Universe used a storyboard-driven process rather than a script-driven one, which meant that each pair of episodes had a slightly different voice depending on which board team handled it. This is why certain episodes feel subtly different from others in ways that go beyond plot. The rhythm of the dialogue shifts, the visual humour changes register, the emotional beats land at different angles. It is not inconsistency. It is the natural variation that comes from multiple artists pouring themselves into a shared world. The voice cast connections extend into personal territory in ways that feel almost like fiction. Dee Dee Magno Hall and Shelby Rabara, who voices Peridot, are both Filipino-American performers who brought not just their vocal talents, but their cultural backgrounds into a show that quietly built one of the most diverse casts in animation history. They are part of a notable cluster of Filipino-American women voicing gem characters in the series, alongside Jennifer Paz, who voices Lapis Lazuli. Shelby Rabara, interestingly, originally auditioned for the role of Garnet before being cast as Peridot, a character whose trajectory would become one of the show's most beloved arcs. It is hard to imagine anyone else voicing Peridot's clipped technical delivery. The way she says "clod" as though it were the most devastating insult in any language. The gradual softening of her speech patterns as she absorbs Earth culture and trades homeworld jargon for slang. Ribara found the character that needed her, even if it was not the one she originally sought. The fact that voice actors recorded together in the same room, unlike many animated productions where actors record separately, gave the performances a conversational chemistry that is difficult to manufacture. Most animated shows record actors in isolation, one at a time, in separate sessions that might be days or weeks apart. The dialogue is assembled in post-production, spliced together to create the illusion of conversation. Steven Universe did this differently. When Pearl and Peridot argue, when Steven and Garnet share a quiet moment, the actors were actually in the room together, reacting to each other in real time. You can hear it in the timing, in the overlapping breaths, in the way a response comes just a fraction of a second faster than it would if it had been recorded in isolation. There is a quality to genuine conversational rhythm that cannot be faked, a musicality that emerges only when two people are actually listening to each other. The show captured that quality and made it part of its texture. Now let us turn to something that unfolds not in the voice booth, but on the screen, slowly, across dozens of episodes. The way Beach City changes. Background characters in Steven Universe age. This sounds like a small detail, but in the context of animated television, it is quietly radical. Most cartoons exist in a kind of temporal stasis, where characters remain the same age indefinitely, where the town resets between episodes, where nothing that happened last week leaves a mark on this week. Bart Simpson has been 10 years old for over 3 decades. The Peanuts gang never graduated elementary school. Even shows that deal with complex themes tend to freeze their characters in time, as a concession to syndication and merchandising. Steven Universe refuses that convention. The human residents of Beach City grow older across the series. Their appearances shift subtly. Connie grows taller, her face elongating, her posture shifting from the unsure stance of a shy bookworm to the grounded confidence of a sword fighter. The teenagers become young adults. Lars fills out. Sadie's style evolves. Even Steven himself ages from a chubby-cheeked 14-year-old to a taller, broader 16-year-old by the time of Steven Universe Future, complete with a visible neck that he did not have before. The passage of time is not announced. It is simply present, embedded in the character designs, visible to anyone paying attention. It makes every return to a character after a long absence feel like running into someone you have not seen in a while. They look different, they look older, and that realization carries a quiet, emotional weight that frozen in time cartoons can never access. This commitment to continuity extends to the town itself. Beach City accumulates damage from gem battles and does not magically reset. The boardwalk sustains damage. Buildings are destroyed and remain destroyed. The handship crash site stays visible. The communication hub that Sugilite demolishes in Coach Steven remains in ruins when Peridot later attempts to repair it in Cry for Help. The cliff beneath the Crystal Temple gradually erodes. After major conflicts, new chunks of rock are missing, tracked consistently by the background art team across episodes. This persistent world building is rare in animation. It creates the sense that Beach City is not a backdrop, but a place, one that bears the consequences of everything that happens within it. Sadie Miller and Lars Barriga embody this philosophy of consequence more than almost any other characters. Even their surnames carry hidden jokes. Barriga means belly in Spanish and Portuguese, a small, affectionate gag about a character who spends most of the series behind a donut counter. Lars is a Scandinavian name, historically meaning crowned with laurels, the ancient symbol of victory and honour, which reads as pure irony for most of the series. Lars is lazy, dismissive, and deeply insecure, but by the final season, when he has become Captain Lars, leading the off-colours through space with bravery and compassion, the laurel crown no longer feels like a joke. It feels like a prophecy. His name was waiting for him to grow into it. Their relationship arc across the series does not follow the expected trajectory. They begin as co-workers at the Big Donut, with obvious romantic tension. Lars is dismissive and insecure. Sadie is patient but increasingly frustrated. In Island Adventure, they are stranded together, and the episode hints at romance. romance, but it also reveals something unsettling. Sadie hid the means of escape because she wanted to keep Lars in a situation where he was kind to her. The show does not frame this as cute, it frames it as a problem. Over the course of the series, their relationship does not resolve into a tidy romance. Instead, it evolves the way real relationships sometimes do. Lars undergoes a dramatic transformation, dying and being resurrected by Steven, turning pink, leading the off-colors through space, becoming Captain Lars. Sadie, meanwhile, discovers her own identity independent of Lars. She joins a band, she finds confidence, she begins a relationship with Shep. When they meet again, they are friends, not lovers, not enemies, just two people who have grown in different directions. The show lets them both be okay with that. It is one of the most honest depictions of young relationship dynamics in any animated series. The lighthouse that overlooks Beach City serves as a quiet, recurring location for moments of discovery and revelation throughout the series. Ronaldo Fryman uses it as his base for paranormal research. In Horror Club, Steven, Ronaldo, Sadie and Lars go there to watch scary movies and discover a gem embedded in the basement wall. The lighthouse is where characters go to look outward, to scan the horizon, to seek answers. Its elevated position above the town makes it a natural setting for moments when characters need perspective. When Ronaldo spots the barn on the moon through the lighthouse telescope, it triggers Steven's journey to find Lapis. The lighthouse functions as a threshold between the mundane world of Beach City and the larger, stranger universe beyond it. Beach City itself carries geographical Easter eggs that reward attentive viewers. The fictional state of Delmarva, where Beach City is located, takes its name from the real Delmarva Peninsula on the east coast of the United States, a region encompassing Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. Phone numbers visible in the show use the 443 area code, which is a real area code for Maryland. A card on the fridge in the beach house shows Fish Stew Pizza's phone number with this code. Mystery Girl's phone number uses the 301 area code, another real Maryland code. The postal abbreviation for the fictional state is DV, visible in the window of the Big Donut. Rebecca Sugar based Beach City on Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, where she spent summers as a child, and these area codes and geographical markers anchor the fictional town to a real stretch of American coastline. Let us return to the visual design for a moment, because there is one detail about Peridot's original outfit that functions as foreshadowing so effective it is almost invisible. When Peridot first appears, her bodysuit features a yellow diamond shape at the center of her chest, right at the solar plexus. Her leggings have diamond-shaped knee pads. The color scheme is green with prominent yellow accents. All of this marks her as a member of Yellow Diamond's court. The symbol is right there, worn openly, a declaration of allegiance that most viewers process without consciously registering. When Peridot defects, when she calls Yellow Diamond a clod in the episode Message Received, the outfit she has been wearing the entire time becomes a kind of ironic artifact. She wears the insignia of the authority she is renouncing. Her later outfit changes, adopting the crystal gem star, carry extra weight because they replace something specific. She is not just putting on a new look, she is taking off an old loyalty. Rose's room in the Crystal Temple functions as the show's version of the holodeck from Star Trek, a comparison that multiple critics and fans have drawn. The room generates whatever its occupant desires, conjuring objects, environments, and even simulated people from clouds and light. But unlike the holodeck, which typically malfunctions in dramatic, plot-convenient ways, Rose's room reveals its limitations through something more unsettling. The simulated people have blank, simplified faces. Their dialogue loops and glitches. Food appears, but dissolves when touched. The room cannot create anything its user does not already know, which means it is ultimately a mirror, reflecting Steven's own understanding of the world back at him in increasingly distorted forms. The tiny floating whale that appears in the room is voiced by Susan Egan, the same actress who voices Rose Quartz. Steven does not know this. He interacts with the whale as just another strange element of the room, but the audience, if they recognize the voice, understand something Steven does not. His mother, is still speaking to him through the architecture of the room itself, asking him what he really wants. The room also carries a thematic weight that deepens across the series. Rose used this room. She spent time here. And the room, which generates its contents from the desires and memories of its occupant, served as a space where Rose could create a private world tailored to her wishes. This connects to the broader revelation about Rose's character. She was someone who kept secrets, who maintained appearances, who built beautiful surfaces over complicated truths. The room is, in a sense, a physical manifestation of that tendency. It creates what you want to see. It hides what you do not want to confront. It is Rose's psychology rendered as architecture. Later in the series, in Storm in the Room, Stephen returns to Rose's room and confronts a simulation of his mother. The room generates a version of Rose based on Stephen's memories and feelings about her, which means the Rose he talks to is not his real mother. She is his understanding of his mother, filtered through the room's wish fulfillment mechanics. The scene becomes a conversation between a boy and his own unresolved grief, disguised as a family reunion. The holodeck metaphor, in this moment, stops being a fun reference and becomes something genuinely painful. The room can give Stephen anything he wants except the one thing he actually needs, which is the truth about who Rose Quartz really was. Now, there is something remarkable about the diamonds that connects the show's fiction to real-world geology, and it happens at the level of colour. The 4 diamonds in Steven Universe are yellow, blue, pink, and white. And in the real world, diamonds genuinely occur in all 4 of these colours. Fancy yellow diamonds get their colour from nitrogen atoms embedded in the crystal lattice. Blue diamonds derive their hue from trace amounts of boron. Pink diamonds, among the rarest in nature, get their colour not from a chemical impurity, but from structural distortions within the crystal itself, tiny deformations that bend light into the pink spectrum. And white diamonds, the most familiar, are prized for their apparent colourlessness, their ability to transmit light without alteration. The show's diamond authority is not mapped onto arbitrary colours. It is mapped onto the actual chromatic range of real diamonds, as though the fiction is growing out of the geology rather than being imposed upon it. There is also something quietly telling about which diamond colour is rarest in nature. Pink diamonds are among the most scarce gemstones ever discovered. The vast majority came from a single mine in Western Australia, the Argyle mine, which closed in 2020. Pink diamond in the show is the smallest of the diamonds, the youngest, the one who was never given her own colony, the one whose fellow diamonds treated as lesser. She is the rarest, and she is treated as the least valuable. The show maps the geological scarcity of pink diamonds onto the emotional scarcity of respect and autonomy that Pink Diamond receives from her family. The parallel may not have been consciously designed at every level, but it resonates with the kind of thematic precision that characterizes the show's best moments. White Diamond's design takes this geological fidelity further. A real white diamond is essentially a prism. When light passes through it, the diamond separates that light into its component colors, producing the rainbow fire that makes diamonds so valued. White Diamond in the show functions identically. She is so bright that her gem's light obscures most of her face. She has the ability to channel coloured light, to absorb and project the qualities of other gems. When she uses her power, she radiates colours, shifting between green, yellow, blue and red. She is, in the visual logic of the show, a prism. White light contains all colours, and White Diamond contains all diamonds. Her design is not merely inspired by the properties of real diamonds, it is a translation of those properties into character design, a gemological fact rendered as narrative architecture. The quartz structures beneath each diamond follow this same colour logic. Every gem created for a specific diamond's court shares that diamond's colour palette. Yellow Diamond's court features gems in yellows and golds. Blue Diamond's court is rendered in blues and teals. The pearls assigned to each diamond match their diamond's colour and personality. Yellow Pearl is rigid and haughty, mirroring Yellow Diamond's emphasis on efficiency and military precision. Blue Pearl is quiet and sorrowful, so subdued she barely speaks, reflecting Blue Diamond's consuming grief. And White Pearl is the most disturbing of all, eerily controlled, her movements puppet-like, her personality apparently stripped away, and replaced with White Diamond's will. White Pearl's cracked eye, the scar that runs across her face, hints at a trauma that the show never fully explains, but that hangs in the air whenever she appears on screen. She is what total conformity looks like when it is not chosen but imposed, when individuality is not surrendered but extracted. These are not just aesthetic choices, they are a visualization of authoritarianism, of a system that demands conformity so that even the servants must become reflections of their rulers. The colour coding that seems at first like a simple organisational principle becomes, on closer inspection, a form of erasure. Every gem in a diamond's court is painted in their diamond's image. Their individuality is subsumed into a collective palette. They exist to be extensions of a singular authority, and their colours are the visible proof. And speaking of reflections, let us circle back to one final cluster of observations about how Steven Universe treats the relationship between a name and the thing it names, between a surface and what lies beneath it. Jenny Pizza does not get the same depth of backstory as Buck or Sour Cream, but she carries her own quiet complexity. She is the daughter of Kofi Pizza, whose strictness and traditionalism she pushes against with the same low-key defiance that defines all three cool kids. Her sister Kiki is the responsible one, the one who stays at the shop and works the counter while Jenny goes out with her friends. The dynamic between the Pizza sisters mirrors, in miniature, the dynamic between duty and freedom that runs through the entire show. Kiki is the pearl of the family, devoted to obligation. Jenny is the amethyst, devoted to living. Neither of them is wrong, and the show is generous enough to let both positions exist without declaring a winner. The Pizza family and the Fryman family are funny because their names describe their jobs, but Buck Dewey carries an additional layer. His father, Mayor Bill Dewey, governs Beach City with the anxious, self-important energy of a man who knows his position is both the most important and the least important thing in town. The Dewey name references Dewey Beach in Delaware, one of the real towns that inspired Beach City's geography. So when Buck Dewey walks through Beach City, he is carrying not just his father's political legacy, but a piece of the show's real-world source material in his surname. He is named after a real place that his fictional town is based on. The layers fold into each other. This is what Steven Universe does with its Easter eggs. It does not simply hide references in the background for sharp-eyed viewers to find. It builds them into the structure of the show, into the names, the voices, the colours, the geological facts, the family trees, the slow aging of background characters, the persistent damage on buildings, the phone numbers on refrigerator cards. Every detail is a small act of care. Every choice carries intention. And the cumulative effect, after hours and hours of watching, is the feeling that this world was not just drawn, it was grown. Layer by layer, like nacre around a grain of sand, like a pearl, and now we arrive at the deeper layers, the ones that speak not just to what was drawn on screen, but to how this show was built from the ground up, and why so many people carry it with them long after the final credits rolled. Because before Steven Universe became the show we know, it existed in a different form entirely. The original pilot, produced in 2013, tells a version of the story that feels familiar but slightly off, like visiting a house you grew up in after someone else has redecorated. In the pilot, the gems discover a time-travelling hourglass, and Steven uses it to form a band with his past selves. That is a far cry from the emotional arcs that would come to define the series. Pearl looks almost nothing like her final design. She has blue skin, visible ears with star-shaped earrings, and hair in a darker shade of orange. Her entire demeanour reads more like an older sister than the maternal, grief-stricken guardian she would become. Garnet has straight hair falling loosely rather than her iconic square afro, and she wears a much more relaxed outfit. Amethyst sports a fanny pack and sleeves and nail polish. Lars has darker skin and black hair, and he and Steven openly dislike each other, which is a far cry from Steven's relentless warmth toward the sardonic teenager in the final product. Even the in-universe origin of the theme song differs. In the pilot, Steven writes it while waiting for the gems to return from a mission. In the series proper, it is the first song he ever writes as a young child, before moving in with the crystal gems. Rebecca Sugar has stated plainly that the pilot is not canon, and watching it now feels like looking at the fossil record of something that would eventually evolve into a completely different organism. The bones are there, the spirit is there, but the body has changed entirely. And speaking of bones and spirit, there is something deeply personal embedded in the architecture of this show that goes beyond the usual creator-to-creation relationship. Rebecca Sugar did not just make Steven Universe. In many ways, Sugar is Steven Universe. The character of Steven is named after Sugar's real brother, Steven Sugar, who also served as a background artist on the show. But the autobiographical threads run far deeper than a shared name. Sugar has spoken publicly about creating the gems as non-binary women to express their own experience as a non-binary person. In a 2018 NPR interview, Sugar described placing personal experiences through a non-binary lens when writing the characters. The queer themes throughout the series, the struggles with identity, the feeling of existing between categories that others insist are fixed, all of it flows directly from Sugar's own life. Ruby and Sapphire's relationship is based on Sugar's relationship with Ian Jones-Quartey, the show's supervising director and co-developer of its first season. The guilt Sugar felt about enjoying cartoons marketed toward boys became the emotional seed for a show that would go on to dismantle gendered expectations in children's media entirely. When Sugar said in interviews that they always like to start projects around something they did not fully understand about themselves yet. That confession explains why Steven Universe feels less like a product and more like a confession. Every frame carries the weight of someone working through something real. That same authenticity extends to the art that never made it to screen. The official art book, Steven Universe Art and Origins, reveals pages of concept art showing gem designs that were never used. Early homeworld gems were styled in a fashion closer to Garnet's first fusion form, asymmetrical, with billowing curves that feel more like high fashion than the rigid, militaristic designs that would eventually define Homeworld. The crew engaged in collaborative exercises they called Design a Gem, a version of the exquisite corpse game where one artist would draw the initial image and another would describe its name, function, and unique traits. Some of those designs were incorporated into the show, many were not, but flipping through those pages you can see the creative restlessness of a team that generated far more ideas than any single series could contain. There is a sense that the Steven Universe we got is only one possible version of a much larger creative universe that existed in the minds of its makers. One design that did make it to screen and made an extraordinary impression belongs to Spinell, the villain of Steven Universe. The movie is a love letter to the earliest era of American animation. Spinell's design, movement, and entire personality are rooted in rubber hose animation, the style that dominated cartoons in the 1920s and 1930s. Her stretchy limbs, her round gloves, the way her body bends and squashes with exaggerated elasticity, all of it references the work of Fleischer Studios and early Disney. Rebecca Sugar has spoken about this directly, saying they had been waiting for the opportunity to pay homage to Grim Natwick's Betty Boop drawings and the classic Ub Iwerks cartoon bounce. Spinell's movements were deliberately choreographed to evoke Betty Boop, and her opening song matches the jazz and ragtime style of those early theatrical cartoons, echoing Cab Calloway's musical involvement with the Fleischer Betty Boop shorts. Her hair stays along the outline of her head, regardless of which direction she faces, a visual trick borrowed directly from Mickey Mouse's ears. Her original cheerful form resembles Mickey, while her corrupted, vengeful form more closely resembles Mickey's predecessor, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. She peppers her speech with period-appropriate slang, words like swell and G, the vocabulary of an era she was designed to embody. Spinell is, in Sugar's own words, an out-of-date cartoon that never evolved. And there is something deeply sad about that description, because Spinell's tragedy is precisely that she was left behind while everything else moved forward. The animation style is not just aesthetic, it is narrative. The title of the Season 5 finale carries a similar kind of layered intention. Change Your Mind works on at least 3 levels simultaneously. On the surface, it is a directive. Steven is trying to convince the Diamond diamonds to change their policies, to reconsider their rigid beliefs about gem hierarchy and purpose. On a deeper level, it is literal. White Diamond's power allows her to control other gems' minds directly, and during the climax, she does exactly that, bleaching the other diamonds and the crystal gems, putting them under her control, literally changing their minds. And there is a third layer still. Sugar originally wrote the song Change Your Mind as an expression of personal frustration while fighting with Cartoon Network for the right to include a same-sex wedding earlier in the season. The song is not just about the fictional diamonds. It is about the real-world gatekeepers who needed to change their minds about what children's television could depict. When White Diamond finally cracks, when she is confronted with her own imperfection, the catharsis is not just narrative, it is autobiographical. Before we move on, if you are enjoying this analysis, please consider subscribing. It helps the channel tremendously, and that brings us to one of the most quietly radical groups in the entire series. The off-colors are gems who exist outside the rigid expectations of Homeworld society. They are defective by Homeworld standards, and the term off-color is used as a slur in their world. But each of these characters maps onto a different experience of marginalization with remarkable precision. The Rutile twins emerged from the kindergarten fused together, resembling conjoined twins, isolated because of their unusual appearance. Fluorite is a fusion of 6 gems, a deliberate representation of a polyamorous relationship, as confirmed by Sugar. And then there is Padparadscha. Padparadscha is a sapphire, but unlike standard sapphires who see the future, Padparadscha can only perceive events that have already happened. Her visions arrive late, always slightly behind the present moment. On the surface, this is played for gentle humour, but the metaphor runs deeper. Padparadscha's delayed processing reads as a representation of neurodivergence, a way of experiencing the world that operates on a different timeline than the one society expects. She is not broken, she is not less, she simply processes reality at her own pace. And the off-colors accept her completely, not despite this difference but alongside it, because in their group, being different is the one thing everyone has in common. It is a quietly powerful statement about the way marginalized communities form when the dominant culture has no room for variation. Among the off-colors, Rhodonite carries a particularly poignant history. She is a fusion of a ruby and a pearl, which on the surface mirrors Garnet's composition of a ruby and a sapphire. But Rhodonite's story is different in crucial ways. Her component gems once served a Morganite, acting as her personal pearl attendant and ruby guard. When the two fell in love and fused, Morganite discovered what had happened and rejuvenated them, wiping their memories. But here is the devastating detail. No matter how many times they were rejuvenated, no matter how many times their memories were erased, the ruby and the pearl fell in love again and again, 17 times, according to the show's lore, before Morganite finally gave up and replaced them entirely. There is something almost unbearably romantic about that. The idea that love can survive the erasure of memory itself, that some connections exist at a level deeper than conscious recollection. Rhodonite is living proof that Homeworld's system of control has limits, that there are forces within gems that hierarchy cannot suppress. And this connects to one of the most foundational world-building decisions in the entire series. Gems have no biological sex. They are sentient light projections from a gemstone. Their physical forms are, in the show's own language, illusions, chosen rather than assigned. They use she and her pronouns, but Sugar has been deliberately provocative about what that means. When asked why gems use feminine pronouns despite having no biological sex, Sugar responded with a question of their own. The real question is, were or are there any female crystal gems? It is a statement designed to unsettle assumptions, to make the viewer reconsider what gender means when the body itself is a construct. Sugar, who is non-binary and uses both she and they pronouns, created the gems as non-binary women, a phrase that itself resists easy categorization. The show does not lecture about gender, it simply presents beings who exist outside the binary and lets the viewer sit with that, which makes Stephen's existence all the more remarkable from a narrative standpoint. Stephen is the first and only male-presenting character in the show's universe to possess a gem. Every other gem, across every type and faction and era, presents as feminine. Stephen's gem, inherited from his mother, marks him as something Homeworld has never encountered. He is not a gem, he is not a human, he is something new. And the fact that he presents as male while carrying a gem challenges every assumption Homeworld has built its civilization around. The show never makes a grand speech about this. It simply lets Stephen exist, and the discomfort his existence causes among Homeworld gems speaks volumes about the rigidity of their worldview. That same willingness to simply let things exist, to present rather than explain, defines one of the show's most historically significant moments. The episode Reunited, which aired on July 6, 2018, features the wedding of Ruby and Sapphire. It is the first same-sex wedding depicted on a Cartoon Network series, and one of the first in American children's animation history. The two share an on-screen kiss, also a first for a major character in this context. Rebecca Sugar fought hard for this moment. The art book, Steven Universe: End of an Era, reveals just how much resistance Sugar encountered from the network. The fact that it happened at all is a testament to Sugar's persistence, and the fact that it happened beautifully, without caveat or compromise, changed the landscape of what children's animation was willing to depict. The series went on to win Outstanding Kids and Family Programming at the 30th GLAAD Media Awards, making it the first animated series to receive that honour. The show itself premiered on November 4th, 2013, on Cartoon Network, with 2 episodes airing together. It became the network's most watched series premiere at that time among kids aged 6 to 11. But the premiere date is less remarkable than what it represented. Steven Universe was created by Rebecca Sugar, who at the time was recognised as the first woman to independently create a series for Cartoon Network. Sugar has since come out as non-binary and has reflected on the complexity of that distinction, noting in 2020 that they did not identify as a woman, but had felt pressure to conceal that fact precisely because of the historic label attached to them. The milestone remains significant, but its meaning has shifted. It is no longer the story of the first woman to create a Cartoon Network show. It is the story of a non-binary creator who was forced into a category that did not fit in order to be recognised at all, which, when you think about it, is remarkably consistent with the themes of the show itself. There are smaller details scattered throughout the series that reward the kind of quiet attention this show trained its audience to develop. Consider Sapphire's single eye. She is visually a cyclops, and that is not accidental. In Greek mythology, the Cyclopes were sometimes connected to prophetic sight, the idea that sacrificing one eye was the price for seeing beyond the present moment. Sapphire can see the future. Her single eye is the visual cost of that ability, a mythological reference embedded so seamlessly into her design that it reads as natural rather than referential. Or consider Amethyst and the weight she carries about her origins. She comes from the prime kindergarten on Earth, where she emerged long after all the other amethysts had already left. She is overcooked, meaning she stayed in the ground too long and emerged smaller than she was supposed to be. By Homeworld standards, she is defective. Jasper calls her an overcooked runt. Peridot, before she learns better, labels her a defective quartz. Amethyst is shorter and stockier than a standard quartz soldier because her base form is inherently smaller and more fluid, which ironically gives her greater shape-shifting abilities. Her insecurity about her size drives entire character arcs, particularly in her rivalry with Jasper, who represents everything Amethyst was supposed to be, but is not. The show treats Amethyst's so-called defect not as something to be fixed, but as something to be understood and eventually embraced. She is not less, she is different, and different in the world of Steven Universe is never a failing. Then there is the quiet domestic arc of Lapis Lazuli and Peridot, two former Homeworld gems who end up sharing a barn on Earth. Their roommate dynamic is one of the show's most organic character studies. Lapis, who has endured imprisonment, manipulation, and the trauma of being fused with Jasper against her will, is not quick to trust. Peridot, who has only recently defected from Homeworld, approaches everything with the analytical enthusiasm of someone discovering emotions for the first time. The episode Barnmates is entirely dedicated to Peridot's increasingly desperate attempts to win Lapis over, and the title itself is a pun on roommates. What brings them together eventually is Camp Pining Hearts, a fictional in-universe television show about teenage drama at a summer camp. Peridot is already a devoted fan. Lapis becomes one. They watch it together, analyse it, debate character pairings, and even write fan fiction about it. Camp Pining Hearts is the bridge that turns two traumatized aliens into friends. There is something quietly beautiful about the idea that shared enthusiasm for a piece of fiction can heal wounds that direct conversation cannot. That sometimes the safest way to be vulnerable is through a story that is not your own. A smaller but delightful detail appears in Steven Universe Future. Garnet adopts a calico cat in the episode Pool Hopping, and Steven suggests naming it Steven, but when that proves confusing, Garnet settles on Cat Steven. The name is almost certainly a reference to the musician Cat Stevens, known for songs like Peace Train and Wild World. It is the kind of gentle, warm reference that does not demand recognition, but rewards it. Cat Steven appears throughout Future, and in the family portrait that replaces Rose Quartz's painting in the beach house, Garnet is holding the cat, a quiet visual statement about how families grow and change and make room for new members in the spaces left by those who are gone. Steven's birthday is August 15th. This was confirmed by Rebecca Sugar at San Diego Comic-Con in 2016, and it is not a random date. August 15th is also the birthday of Steven Sugar, Rebecca's brother, and the real person the character is named after. Their shared birthday makes Peridot their shared birthstone, which is a coincidence that feels almost too perfect for a show built around gemstones. It is one of those details that blurs the line between fiction and reality in a way that makes the show feel less like a product and more like a gift from one sibling to another. The show's attention to detail extends even into background elements that most viewers would never notice. Items in the Big Donut, Beach City's donut shop, feature UPC barcodes that the background artists rendered with genuine care. The level of visual specificity in the show's environments goes beyond what most animated series attempt, treating every surface as an opportunity for authenticity rather than a space to be filled with generic marks. Pearl's approach to swordsmanship reflects a similar commitment to specificity. In Steven the Sword Fighter, Pearl criticizes a movie for its unrealistic sword techniques and demonstrates proper form to Steven, emphasizing the drill of parry, parry, thrust. Pearl uses a weapon resembling a rapier, the elegant dueling sword historically associated with nobility, which fits her character's graceful, precise personality. Her fighting style draws from real fencing principles, and the episode Sworn to the Sword, where she trains Connie, treats sword technique with a level of respect that acknowledges fencing as both art and discipline. Pearl does not merely fight, she practices a tradition, and the show honors the difference. Then there is the episode that the show itself insists does not count. Say Uncle, which aired on April 2nd, 2015, is a crossover between Steven Universe and Uncle Grandpa, another Cartoon Network series. The episode is emphatically non-canon. Before it aired, story writer Matt Burnett claimed on Twitter that the crossover was canonical, but this turned out to be an elaborate April Fool's Day joke, and the episode itself makes the joke explicit. Uncle Grandpa looks directly at the viewer and says, "Do not worry, bro, none of this is canon. It is the only non-canon episode in the entire run of Steven Universe," and the show's insistence on flagging its own exception proves just how seriously it takes its continuity. In a series where background damage from gem battles persists across episodes and character wardrobes change to reflect emotional growth, the idea of a consequence-free episode is so foreign that it requires its own disclaimer. Dogcopter occupies a similarly self-aware space in the show's world. It is a fictional franchise within the fiction of Steven Universe, a movie series about a dog with a helicopter propeller on its back who fights crime and loves explosives. Steven and Connie are fans. The franchise spawns sequels, spin-offs, and even a marriage subplot in later installments. Dogcopter is the show's way of having fun with the very concept of fandom, of showing its characters, engaging with fictional media the same way its audience engages with Steven Universe itself. When Connie and Steven debate the merits of a Dogcopter sequel, they are performing the exact behaviour the show's own viewers engage in every day. It is a mirror held up with affection rather than irony. Deep within the Crystal Temple, there is a room that belongs to Rose Quartz, or rather, that belonged to her. Rose's room is a chamber of pink clouds that responds to the wishes of whoever carries the pink diamond gem, which means it now responds to Steven. The room is a pocket dimension, a space where anything can be imagined into existence, but nothing is real. It is the temple's memory of Rose, a space that still exists because Steven exists. And there is something haunting about that. A room that fulfills wishes, built by a woman whose greatest wish to become someone new required her to stop existing entirely. Steven enters Rose's room throughout the series, and each visit carries the quiet weight of a child walking through a space his mother made but never intended him to find. The room does not judge, it does not explain, it simply gives Steven whatever he asks for, which is both a gift and a kind of ghost. And that brings us to the end, the final scene of Steven Universe Future. Steven is leaving Beach City. He has packed the Dondai Supremo, said his goodbyes, and begun driving away from the only home he has ever known. The citizens of Beach City wave from the sidewalks, from the boardwalk, from the steps of the Big Donut. The crystal gems stand together, watching him go. And then Steven stops the car. He throws it in reverse and drives back, and he bursts into tears, because leaving is not something you do cleanly. It is something you do in pieces, with false starts and reversals, and the awful knowledge that going forward means leaving something behind. After one final embrace, Steven leaves for real. He passes the Big Donut, he passes the boardwalk, he leaves Beach City. Earlier in the episode, the Gems reprise the Cookie Cat song that Steven sang to them in the very first episode of the series. They sing the lyrics back to him, including the line he left his family behind. And Steven realizes that Cookie Cat was never just about ice cream. It was about him. It was always about him. A refugee of an interstellar war who left his family behind to start something new. 100 Easter eggs. 100 threads pulled from the fabric of a show that was woven with more care, more intention, and more love than anyone could reasonably expect from a cartoon about a boy with a gemstone in his belly button. But that is the thing about Steven Universe. It was never just a cartoon. It was a statement about what animation could be, about what children deserve to see in their media, about the kinds of stories that are worth telling even when, especially when, the people in charge say they are too complicated for the audience they are meant for. Every hidden detail we have walked through tonight, from the Cookie Cat song that foreshadowed the entire series to the final drive out of Beach City, represents a choice. Someone on that team, whether it was Rebecca Sugar or a storyboard artist or a background painter, decided that this moment mattered enough to lay a meaning into it. They decided that the audience would care, and they were right, because here we are, years after the final episode aired, still pulling at threads, still finding new things, still marvelling at the depth of a world built by people who believed that nothing was too small to matter. If you have been here since the beginning of this video, I genuinely thank you. Whether you are still awake or whether this carried you gently into sleep, it has been a privilege to spend this time with you. Steven Universe taught a generation that vulnerability is not weakness, that identity is not fixed, that love in all its forms deserves to be seen. And maybe the greatest Easter egg of all is the one that is not hidden. It is the simple, radical idea that a show made for children can also be made for everyone. That care is never wasted, that the small details are never small. If you enjoyed this video essay, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next.